accountants, and even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff, even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover guitar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Dear John, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but you've left me no choice. I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is really serious, and lately you seem to really not care. I've been there for you since day one, and I know you think I'm going to keep ticking. But no, my friend, I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to the good times, when we were more active and ate more healthy foods, and you checked on me every once in a while? Is that too much to ask? I don't want to leave, but unless you stop ignoring me, what else am I supposed to do? Remember, when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Doing the minimum to control your high blood pressure isn't doing enough. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/blood pressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hey, everyone. Let's all stop what we're doing right now and take a moment. That felt good, huh? Just like that, we had a nice, special sort of moment together. Of course, they don't all need to be quiet moments to be special. They could be loud moments, goofy moments, sporty moments, dorky moments, moments where we talk or walk or just hang out. It doesn't really matter. They all count. Because every time dads like us take a moment like that to spend with our kids, well, it's pretty momentous. Sounds like somebody agrees. So let's take a moment to make a moment. Today, call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Music is a bridge between the material and the spiritual. My name is Harvey Lauer, and I'm 82. As a blind person, you have to be aware that nobody can tell you what you can or can't do. You really have to try things. My folks got me a little radio in 1940, and that was the best Christmas present I ever got. When I was 11 years old is when I started to play music, play the piano, and then the accordion, and then the cello. My wife, who was also blind, was a good cook. When she died, that's when I started Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
It's Meals on Wheels. 1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
What are you talking about?
No, it's not him. There's only one more. There is only one more. That's it. One more. No!
They saw your team put up zero effort.
Wake up!
Remember in the old days, they used to have oxygen for them. Where's the oxygen?
Play like absolute just garbage. This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Yay!
Can you keep it down? I'm trying to introduce here. With Errol Marks and Speedy Petey.
You're not even a has-been. You never was.
We are back once again, ladies and gentlemen, January 25th for another show of the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks. My co-host, Speedy Petey. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to check out our local listing for all our shows is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Speeder, what is up?
Well, I'm a Giants fan, but I'm a suffering Giants fan in the recent years, but at least I'm not an Atlanta Falcons fan after what they did today. Ooh.
Oh, my God. Who would have thought they were going to sign Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick? I am just absolutely shocked. Nobody would have thought that to be happening for the NFL. But hey, you know what? Things happen. Everything happens for a reason, and maybe it works out for the Atlanta Falcons. It didn't work out the last time Raheem Morris got a job, so you can ask the Chargers on that one, or ask anybody that had him.
Besides the Rams, they won a Super Bowl, but he wasn't the coach. The head coach.
Well, I feel bad for Raheem Morris. That team was just built wrong. He didn't have much of a team around him when he got fired. So, unfortunately, and I will say this, and congratulations to the Chargers hiring probably the best coach available this offseason in Jim Harbaugh. And that's why I mentioned the Chargers. So, there we go. Anyways, at 8:30, we'll be talking to former Chargers and Bills All-Pro linebacker and founder of Lights Out Extreme Fighting, Shawne Merriman. He'll be joining us for the second time. He hasn't been on the show for about a year, so we're very excited.
Tyler was on.
It's going to be very exciting to have him on again. At 9:30, we'll be talking to Colorado Rockies relief pitcher Lucas Gilbreath. He'll be joining us as well, so it'll be fun. This is the first time he's been on our show, so that will be fun. Falcons hire Raheem Morris as their next head coach. We will get into that first. Jim Harbaugh's deal with the Chargers will be 5 years and likely around $12 million per year. It was expected between 12 and 15. So Jim Harbaugh will be one of the highest paid coaches in the NFL as expected. NFL awards and finalists announced. Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, and Joe Mauer make the Baseball Hall of Fame. Interesting three guys. I love Adrian Beltre. I think he's a fantastic player, had a long career. I don't know about Todd Helton. I mean, he played in Colorado his whole career practically in a place where it seems like every single great hitter that's been there hit very well in Colorado. And whenever they got traded or they decided to go elsewhere, they weren't the same player. But Todd Helton, very, very interesting. Joe Mauer, definitely well-deserved. One of the better catchers in a 5 to 6 year span. He's won a couple of hitting titles and MVPs. So I think he's a sensational player who absolutely deserves the accolades. Anthony Rendon says that the MLB season should be shorter. I wonder why, because he can't stay healthy. Kevin Durant says he should be in the GOAT conversation and only isn't because he went to the Warriors. That's not true. Let's parlay with Wes and Derek and maybe Reno Johnny and NFC and AFC championship picks. So let's get into it. Raheem Morris, NFL Network's Tom Pelissero reports that Raheem Morris will be the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Morris has served as the Rams defensive coordinator for the last 3 seasons, including on their Super Bowl championship team. Morris was 17-31 in 3 seasons coaching the Buccaneers and 4-7 as the Falcons interim coach in 2020. The Falcons passed up Bill Belichick and big-name offensive coordinators such as Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick, despite bringing them in for second interviews. Bill Belichick will now very likely not get a coaching job this season, with the Seahawks and the Commanders being the 2 vacancies left, and neither of them are interested in Bill Belichick or have asked to interview Bill Belichick. Washington is very likely to hire Ben Johnson, and Seattle is very likely to hire Dan Quinn. This was a surprise, an absolute surprise. Nobody, I repeat, nobody would have thought that the Atlanta Falcons, out of all the different coaches they interviewed, and they interviewed Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh went in for 2 interviews. Bill Belichick for 2 interviews. Raheem Morris for 2 interviews. And out of all 3 guys, and those were the 3 big picks because the rest of them were practically new coaches, new guys, they're coordinators. They're on their way of getting their first coaching job. Nobody would have thought out of all 3 of those guys, they were going to go with Raheem Morris. And Raheem Morris is not a bad coordinator. He's one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. If you look what he's done if you look what he did for the Rams for the last couple of years, he won a Super Bowl as the defensive coordinator for the Rams. He's been there. He understands how to win. There's no question. He didn't succeed over there with the Buccaneers, maybe because of the talent around him, maybe because he had Jameis Winston as his quarterback. I don't know. Maybe he was stealing crab legs with Jameis Winston at the supermarket. I don't know. But what I do know about Raheem Morris is he comes from a tree of good coaches. He does. And that's something that you have to look at. Now, everybody deserves a second chance. Raheem Morris hasn't been a coach in almost 4 years. He's getting his second try. If he fails in Atlanta, he might never get a coaching job again. And we've seen it happen. Look at Rex Ryan. We spoke about this yesterday. Rex Ryan had a job with the Jets for 5 years. He was an accomplished a head coach and defensive coordinator. He goes to the Jets. He goes to 2 back-to-back AFC title games, and then the Jets completely fall apart. Maybe because of Geno Smith. Maybe because the team just didn't like Geno Smith, and the defense was starting to get old, and they started to move on with certain players. Atlanta is a young, talented team. They have a lot of good, young, talented players at their positions. Kyle Pitts, I have no idea in the last 2 years why he hasn't been used as much as he should have been. That we have to ask Smith for, because there's nothing that tells me why Kyle Pitts didn't have the ball thrown to him at least 75, 80 times this past year. It doesn't make any sense. Drake London is a great young wide receiver if he can stay healthy. They have one of the best young running backs in all of the NFL in Bijan Robinson. They have talent there. Their offensive line needs to be cleaned up a little bit. It's not what it used to be when they went to the Super Bowl, when they had Matty Ice as their quarterback. Their defense has got better over the last year, obviously adding some safety help and some corner help in the draft. Still need to clean up that defense. Maybe that's why they decided to bring in Raheem Morris, because Bill Belichick is more like a drill sergeant. And these younger players might not be driven to play for a guy like Bill Belichick. He puts a lot of pressure on his players, even though every single player that we've interviewed over the last couple of years that have been under Bill Belichick says he's a great players coach. He might not look like that, but he's very good in the locker room. He works very well with the players. But maybe Arthur Blank just didn't really like Bill Belichick for this position. Now, you go back and you wonder what happened to the Patriots the last couple of years. Maybe it was the Mac Jones thing. Maybe it was they don't have Tom Brady there anymore, where you can hide deficiencies in the defense. You can hide deficiencies in the offensive play. Or maybe just Bill Belichick just lost his voice in the locker room. When you go for interviews and you haven't been for an interview for 20-something years, you're going in there cold. Everybody knows what you are. Everybody knows what you've done in the NFL. Everybody knows you've been a 6-time Super Bowl champion. You're arguably one of the greatest coaches to ever coach in the NFL. Everybody knows you're trying to break Don Schuler's numbers and his win record. Everybody knows that's what Bill Belichick wants to stay as a head coach in the NFL, or he'd probably be a GM and sit out and do what he does and building teams. And he did a very good job for many, many years for the New England Patriots, bringing in talent after talent and sometimes striking out with wide receivers, running backs. It didn't always work for Bill Belichick. What we do know about Bill Belichick is he has an understanding of what success is. Not only did he win 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots, he won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. He's won 8 rings. Bill Belichick knows what success is. What has Raheem Morris done in this league? Besides winning 1 ring with the Rams, what has he done?
1-10-6 season as a head coach.
He's done nothing.
Yeah.
He's done nothing. And this is a long shot here. If this fails for the Atlanta Falcons, this could set the Atlanta Falcons back for at least 5 to 10 years. You've seen this before. Look at the Jets. Look what the Jets are dealing with right now. Since Rex Ryan, how many coaches have the Jets gone through since Rex Ryan? 2 back-to-back AFC title games. The Jets have not been to the playoffs since Rex Ryan. That says a lot. The last time the Jets were in the playoffs, I think, was in 2011.
Yep, I was a junior in high school.
2011. It is now 2024. It has been over 13 years, going on 14 years, that the Jets have not been in the playoffs. And the Jets have had, since Rex Ryan, I think 4 coaches. 5, I think. It hasn't worked. And then when you go into this carousel of these coaches, this guy's available, that guy's available, that guy's available. It doesn't work. Look at Ron Rivera. He gets booted by the Carolina Panthers. He took the Carolina Panthers 3 years before that to the Super Bowl and had an MVP quarterback. He gets fired, and what does he do? He jumps on the first job that's offered him, Washington. Ron Rivera will not have a coach or get a coaching job for at least the next 3 to 5 years, if he wants one, because Ron Rivera is getting up there in age as well. Success is what you look for when it comes to searching for a coach. Jim Harbaugh, he was successful in the NFL. I think he was 40-19 or 43-19.
3 straight NFC championship games.
And 3 NFC championship games before he decided to part ways with the 49ers and go and coach Michigan for all these years. He won a national championship, which he promised Michigan he was going to do. And I said that. Once he wins that national championship, he's going to flee. He's going to go back to the NFL because he wants to win a Super Bowl. He wants to be a part of the NFL world because this guy's been a successful quarterback in the NFL. He wasn't a superstar, but he had a couple of really good years as a quarterback in the NFL. But this thought that the Atlanta Falcons made the right choice with Raheem Morris, I want to know what sold Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick. Because honestly, when it comes to defensive side of the ball, when you look at Raheem Morris, who's a defensive coordinator, and Bill Belichick, I have seen Bill Belichick do more with less than less with more.
Yep. And Raheem Morris, too, is another example of a retread, which we have not seen work at this level for the last really 6 years. Really, since this young, innovative coaching tree has started to come into the NFL since the Shawne McVay hire with the Rams. We've seen a lot of these other retreads get coaching jobs. There's only one that's really been successful, Dan Campbell in Detroit. That's been it. The Giants tried it with Pat Shurmur. That didn't work. Obviously, the Jets did it with Adam Gase the next year. That didn't work. And sometimes, just usually the second time around for a lot of these head coaches are not the case. And Raheem Morris has not been a head coach since the 2011 Buccaneers. He had one good season in 2010. They almost made the playoffs. They lost on a tiebreaker to the Packers and the Giants, and they missed the playoffs that year. Since then, he had losing records. And their defense and their offense was not overly talented, fine, but that doesn't mean that he was a great head coach either. And if the Falcons were going to take a chance at not hiring Bill Belichick, I was surprised they wouldn't go with a more offensive guy. That's the trend of the league. Their defense was good last year, so I think they could plug in a lot of other defensive coordinators and make that kind of thing work, especially with the big names that are available now. And if you want to go hire Johnson, you want to go hire Slowick, something like that, okay. Maybe that's understandable because, like you said, Belichick is tough, a disciplined guy. Maybe a young team would not be able to abide by that. But Raheem Morris, I feel like you're kind of settling for something that just because he was your interim coach in 2020 and the team won 4 games, like it just doesn't make sense. And Arthur Blank continues to hire guys that have very little experience. And we saw the Chargers finally break that trend after 20 years with Jim Harbaugh. Falcons are still stuck in that same kind of mold. They're kind of like the NFC version of it. A little bit player development better, but they're the NFC mold right now of the Chargers. That's why they haven't been able to win a lot of playoff games.
No, and that's the thing. When you look at Bill Belichick, even with all the craziness that was going on in New England this year, they were ranked pretty high with their defense. And I'll say this. They did. The thing about Bill Belichick and what makes Bill Belichick so special is what he does with the secondary. He finds secondary help in the draft. Always does. You'll find him in the 3rd round. He'll find him in the 4th round. Look at all the 2nd round draft picks he's found when it came to secondary help. He's found ways to build that secondary up. And that's been a huge problem for the Atlanta Falcons over the last couple of years, is finding secondary help. As a matter of fact, they haven't had a good secondary since they went to the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. And now you had a chance to get one of the greatest coaches of all time who's on his way to being the greatest coach of all time. And wouldn't you want to see Bill Belichick break the wins record for your team, for your organization? That would be fantastic. Maybe Bill Belichick wanted more control. Maybe that was what it was. Maybe Bill Belichick wanted to be the GM/coach of the team. And that's what Arthur Blank didn't want. Arthur Blank wanted just a coach. So maybe that was the reason why they decided to go with Raheem Morris. Who's their GM right now?
It's Terry Fontenot, who's been there for 2 years, which I guess he's had some good picks, but like I'm not saying he's like, it's not like Detroit or Seattle or like these other teams, the Jets that have drafted really well the last 2 years.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Was that part of the deal? Is firing the GM over there? Was it maybe telling the GM and Fontenot telling him, hey, you know what? We're bringing Bill in, and Bill's going to be a big part of the drafting back end of it. So right. I don't know what it is, but there was something that they didn't like. There was something after the second interview that they didn't like about Bill Belichick. It's a shame because I would have loved to see Bill Belichick in Atlanta. I would have loved to see him in the NFC. I think the NFC would not want to see Bill Belichick there, being that he's had a lot of success against NFC teams over the years with the Patriots. So I was very surprised from this. I'm not surprised that they brought in a younger guy in Raheem Morris because they have a bunch of younger players. And Bill Belichick, over the years, has really done well with more veteran players than he's done with the younger players. A lot of the younger players have become more sour to Bill Belichick over the years, maybe because of his personality, or maybe he's just not the players coach that everybody has said over the years that we've interviewed on this show.
And again, you also look at the Falcons drafting trends over the years. Besides recently, they've done a very good job with wide receivers in the past. They've done well with bringing in different quarterbacks, probably since the 90s. They were pretty dysfunctional earlier in their franchise history, but nevertheless, running backs, they've done a great job with that. So all the things that Bill Belichick has not done as well with when it comes to drafting, reaching on Sony Michel, drafting, I guess Stevenson's been okay, but he's still been kind of injury prone. And receivers he's been bad at. But those are the strengths of the Atlanta Falcons. So why not you want to cater to that kind of thing with Bill Belichick's expertise being the defense, the offensive line, tight ends, he does a great job with, and make those other guys work well to get a good fusion of formula. The worst thing to have in today's NFL is a coach and a GM that don't get along. And that kind of thing has been evident with the Panthers recently, getting rid of Frank Reich. They wanted to draft CJ Stroud. GM wants to draft Bryce Young. All of a sudden, there's a tension to that. You can't have that kind of thing in today's NFL. And maybe Belichick wanted too much power. I don't know. But from the reports we heard out of New England, he doesn't really want to be a GM anymore.
And that's crazy. But who knows why Arthur Blank decided to go with Raheem Morris? It's a shocker. It's an absolute shocker to a lot of NFL writers and even people, in the sports world that are not into Atlanta Falcons football. I have gone on Yahoo over the last couple of minutes, and some of the writers that have come out and said that Atlanta went with the younger Raheem Morris, and none of the things that they wrote and written in that story that makes a lot of sense of why they decided to go with Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick. None of it does. So it tells me one thing. There was something that was said in that second interview that they didn't like. And it turned, obviously, Arthur Blank off because all in all, everybody knows it's up to the owner. He makes the last decision if he wants to bring the guy in or he doesn't. Right. And obviously, Arthur Blank was not a big fan of Bill Belichick. So interesting story. I was shocked. I really was. Adam Schefter reports that Jim Harbaugh agreed to a 5-year deal, becoming the next head coach of the Chargers. The deal is likely to be around $12 million per year, the largest contract given to a coach in Chargers history. Harbaugh reportedly turned down a 6-year, $11 million per year contract extension with Michigan. Harbaugh has some San Diego ties, playing his last 2 years with the Chargers and starting his college career in the University of San Diego. Harbaugh had a 44-19-1 record in 4 years with the 49ers and made the NFC Championship game for 3 straight seasons. Harbaugh had an 86-25 record with Michigan and made the college football playoff 3 straight seasons and won Michigan's first national championship since 1948. That's a long time. Yeah. So he did what he said he was going to do. He was going to bring home a national championship for the Michigan Wolverines, and then he decided to part ways with them and move forward in the NFL. And we expected this. Anybody that sat here and didn't believe that Jim Harbaugh was going to go back to the NFL is blind. This guy is a successful coach. I think he's going to be very successful with the Chargers. And watch out, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and that Kansas City Chiefs team, because you're going into a season next year where Jim Harbaugh has talent there. It's not like the LA Chargers don't have talent there. They have one of the best and more elusive quarterbacks in the NFL if he can stay healthy. They have a pretty good defense, guys that you can use and move around on that offensive side, on the defensive side of the ball. And the offensive line in Slater, they have one of the best young left tackles in football. Again, he has to stay healthy. They need to add some offensive line help. But and they have Eckler. If they decide to keep Eckler, and you could see Jim Harbaugh telling the Chargers that he wants Eckler to be on this roster because he's a weapon and he could be used very, very well in the style of offense that he likes to run. He likes to run the ball a lot. So I expect that maybe Eckler signs maybe a 2 or 3 year deal extension with the Chargers. But I like the deal. I think this is going to absolutely bring a load of fans to the stadium because everything that we've heard about that stadium, the Chargers are not selling out. They're not bringing in any fans because all their fans are in San Diego. They decided to move to LA. The LA Rams, they're bringing in, they're filling out stadiums. They're selling out stadiums. They did win a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but they're selling out stadiums. And the Chargers are not even filling out half the stadium. So that says a lot about why they decided to bring in a Jim Harbaugh, a guy that's going to bring a lot of people to want to watch them, and it's going to sell the product to the fans out there in the NFL.
Yeah, I also look at the 49ers when he first got there and the Chargers now. I think they're very similar in terms of they have top-heavy talent but have to fill a lot of holes in. And the Chargers are going to have to do that a lot because they're going to be very much against the cap this year. They have a lot of big contracts on defense that they're going to have to figure out what to do with them. And I think
Jim bring them back.
I think Jim Harbaugh if they have to go younger for whatever reason, because they're probably not going to be able to keep everybody. So if they have to get younger, that's a good guy to help them out, because Jim Harbaugh's defenses at Michigan were always very good. And they, especially in the front seven. Now, not all those guys have translated well into the NFL, but still, this is a guy that knows how to work a defense and that running game too. Austin Eckler is going to be a contract that'll be interesting if they bring back, because you're right, he still is a weapon. But at the same time, from his rushing perspective, it did go down this year.
Oh, well, look who the coach was.
Right. And even if Jim Harbaugh, I don't know if he'll draft his own guy or draft another running back, this is a good running back class later in the draft, they could bring in a second guy, and Jim Harbaugh will know what to do with it because of the success he had bringing in these running backs with Michigan. So I think
look what he did with the 49ers. Look at the running game that he had over there with the 49ers. He loves to run the ball. And that's why I think it makes a lot of sense on why they're going to bring Austin Eckler or bring in a veteran running back in to help out whoever they bring in the draft. They will definitely draft a running back this year, but it'll be in the later rounds. It'll be in the third or fourth round. That's what they're going to do. Maybe he brings in one of his own guys from Michigan. Who knows? But it makes a lot of sense why they would probably re-sign Austin Eckler.
Mm-hmm. And again, the talent is similarly top heavy with the receivers. Like the 49ers, look at the receivers they had over there. They had Crabtree, they brought in Anquan Bolden, they had Michael Crabtree, and they brought in Randy Moss. And Jim Harbaugh flourished with those three guys. Rebirth Crabtree's career. Everyone was thinking he was a bust after 2 years, and all of a sudden Jim Harbaugh comes in and he's a great receiver again. Vernon Davis a tight end, and the Chargers have a very similar kind of setup with those three receivers. Quentin Johnson had a bad rookie year. Why not have Jim Harbaugh come in and rebirth him? Somebody like Mike Williams is always hurt. That's a good guy to rebirth him and fix this offense for what it is. And Justin Herbert obviously is great on his own too. Imagine what he is with actually good coaching.
He also had a lot of good tight ends over there with the 49ers in Vernon Davis. And now you have a chance to maybe draft Bowers, who everybody loves at number 5. He's sitting there at 5 because they're drafting at 5. Now they could go after the offensive lineman. They can go after Alt or the kid from Penn State. Right. They can go either way. I have a feeling they're going to go after an offensive talent. Jim Harbaugh is an offensive-minded coach. He does have good defenses, but I could see Bauer. He's a weapon. You can use him as a wide receiver / prototype, tight end. He's got the ability to run so many different routes. He could be dangerous. We've seen what Laporta did this year for the Lions. He changed their offense. You bring in a Bauer who's probably more talented than Laporta is. Oh, yeah. You can do more in the offense. So I like that. I think Bauer would be a great pickup for them at number 5. Now, I don't know if that's the way they're going to go, but Jim Harbaugh is a coach that likes to be consistent. He runs a consistent offense. He likes to run, and he likes to throw short passes and make his athletic players make plays in the open field. So he's got the ability to do that now. Now they have Keenan Allen. He's coming back next year. He has one more year left on his contract. They have Mike Williams coming back. Mike Williams was explosive the year before. He got hurt early this season, really didn't have much of a season. So it's going to be fun to watch what Jim Harbaugh is going to do. And he has one of the best young quarterbacks in all of football in Justin Herbert. That was the selling point out of all the teams and all the opportunities that were available this offseason. The Chargers were the biggest one. Why? Because of Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert changes everything. You can win a Super Bowl with a blink of an eye. You have a weapon like that. You have a guy that he's already great, and you could just help him develop even more skills in the near future. You could see the Chargers in the playoffs next year and being a contender next year with the talent that they have there right now.
Right. If they could fix even some of the offensive line and some of the defense, that's a great team right there, because you're seeing a lot of these teams now still be able to either make or even win the Super Bowl with, as long as you have a top 10, top 12 type quarterback. Because you look at a team like the Bengals, when they went to the Super Bowl, nobody thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl. They were a 4 seed. The Ravens were in that division. The Browns were in that division with a lot of talent. And the Bengals were this young up and coming team that had a lot of big free agent splashes, but nobody expected them to be that good right away. Why can't the Chargers be that same kind of team with already pre-established talent, some good drafts in recent years too, and already good offensive skill players, with Herbert still being a top 7 quarterback for much of his career so far, and one of the statistical records too. You're talking about the youngest quarterback to do this. Peyton Manning and him are the only 2 quarterbacks to do this in their first 3 years. Like, these are guys working with guys that have been hurt, working with guys that have had bad offensive lines and bad coaching. And Herbert's done a great job with all of that. And now he has Jim Harbaugh, a guy that's worked with lesser talent at the quarterback position at Michigan and still had a good offensive scheme. Still was a top 10 team every year. Yeah, Justin Herbert's going to be a top 5, maybe even an MVP candidate quarterback when he comes in.
And then you look at what Tennessee did. They added Brian Callahan. Very interesting move by them. I don't know why they go that route. I think you should have interviewed Bill Belichick. You should have interviewed some of these coaches.
Yeah.
I would have went that route. Now, obviously, Vrabel is a Belichick disciple, so why would Belichick go to Tennessee? But I would have still brought him in and asked him some questions, went over some of the things that he saw that was the problem with the Tennessee Titans, and then you decide to go with Brian Callahan if he fit the best. But just jumping and signing and bringing in a new coach, a guy that's a coordinator, and I wouldn't say successful, but Brian Callahan was part of the Bengals organization. They've been to one Super Bowl, they've been to an AFC title game, but they could never get over the hump to win a Super Bowl. And the last 2 seasons without Joe Burrow, have they been successful? I mean, the year before, they were successful somewhat. They went to an AFC title game, but this year, even losing Joe Burrow, I think Browning did well, but was their offense that fun to watch? I wouldn't say that it was. And that has a lot to do. If he could have figured out how to sneak them into the playoffs, somehow the Bengals in that division, then I would understand why he was going to get this job. But I still think you're reaching with Brian Callahan with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, you wonder too with the Bengals, the new coaching tree too, because Zach Taylor came from the Sean McVay tree, which have always been good team culture guys, but still to be determined on how much they're going to succeed in the NFL, because we saw what Brandon Staley was with the Chargers was just an absolute bust. And you saw Zach Taylor, who's been good at spurts, but sometimes has held that offense back with all the receiving talent that they have. The curious thing that I'm willing to see is if they're going to lure his father, Bill Callahan, who's been one of the best offensive line coaches in football, to help out that offensive line that's been decimated for years. They lost Taylor Lewan, they lost Ben Jones. All these other guys have been busted.
Don't get me started about Bill Callahan, who was a part of the Jets organization.
Yeah.
He went to a Super Bowl taking over for John Gruden and played John Gruden in a Super Bowl years ago with the Raiders.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not a Bill Callahan fan.
No.
I don't know much about his son. And I don't know much about what his offense really did over there with the Bengals, because he had Joe Burrow and he had Jamar Chase. He had all these Higgins. He had all these weapons. He don't have that in Tennessee. Yeah. They have no wide receivers, none. They decided to part ways with one of the best wide receivers in A.J. Brown for a first-round draft pick. Let's be honest, can't stay healthy and he's nothing to sneeze about. So they don't have anything over there. And now Derrick Henry's leaving, so they have no running game. So they got to start all over with Callahan. I think this is a bad hire. I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm surprised because it seemed like Jake Brown in the way he played in the last month of the season might have elevated his stock a little more, but I'm surprised just with Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick still there, especially Slowick too, because why would you not want to poach somebody from your own division, somebody that worked with CJ Stroud directly against you in your own division to work with Will Levis, who has very similar traits?
And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers decided to, but they didn't decide anything. The Panthers decided to hire OC coordinator Dave Canales. And I'll tell you this. Canales had a very good season. This is his first year as a coordinator, and he deserves a lot of credit for the growth and rebuilding Baker Mayfield's confidence. Everything that we've seen Baker Mayfield achieve this year had a lot to do with the Buccaneers and Dave Canales. And that says a lot about who he is. But are you going to give him the reign as a head coach after 1 year as a coordinator, after 1 year as a successful coordinator in Tampa Bay? I don't know if that's a great hire. I know a lot of people like Dave Canales. I've heard a lot of good stories about him. He's got a great personality. He works very well with others. His coaching, all the coaching staffs, including Todd Bowles, says this guy is going to be a champion. He's going to win a championship somewhere, wherever he heads. Nobody would have thought that Carolina was going to go with a rookie coach like this. I mean, this is taking a big chance over here. You have Bryce Young. You gave up a lot for Bryce Young. Now you're hoping that Canales could do what he did for Baker Mayfield, that he could do it for Bryce Young. That's a large order. And Baker Mayfield's a veteran guy that's been successful. Say whatever you want about him. He was one play away from going to the AFC title game with the Browns. The Browns decided that they couldn't win with Baker Mayfield. For some reason, the fans just went and they attacked him and went off on him.
They still are.
They still are. And he jumps from the Browns to the Rams, and now he found a home with the Buccaneers. Now that Tom Brady retired, he's won himself a lot of money. He wants to give Canales, some money, or he wants to throw Canales some money for what he did for him for his career this year. So send him a car or something like that after he gets $190 million or whatever he gets in the offseason from the Buccaneers. But I don't know if it was the right choice to go with a rookie coach in Dave Canales for this job.
I think they needed somebody, though, that would work directly with the quarterback because they don't have a lot of other things to help them out right now. They're going to lose a lot of defensive players. Derek Brown had a great year for defensive tackles, getting a huge contract this offseason. Brian Burns is as good as gone. So they're going to have to make this an offensive team, and it clearly didn't work with Frank Reich. And in addition to Canales doing well with Tampa, he also did well as the quarterback coach in Seattle the year before with Geno Smith. So that makes it seem like they're going to have to do everything to save Bryce Young and make him good right away. This is the best chance. I could see this being like an Arizona Cardinals situation, though, where if Canales can't do it after 1 year, he might be gone right away. And they switch quarterbacks. They move off of Bryce Young and Canales all at once and draft number 1 overall with the 2026 class, which isn't as good anyway. But still, this seems like a very quick leash.
I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy for the organization, especially when they're trying to figure out what to do with their quarterback. I think I would have looked at Mike Vrabel. I would have brought in a guy that's been successful in the NFL. Now, Frank Reich didn't work out. Obviously, he had problems with some of the coaching staff. Some of the players didn't like him. I don't know. I like Frank Reich. I think he's a good offensive coordinator. I was very surprised it didn't work out with Bryce Young and him and that organization. I think I would have given Frank Reich at least another year to see what he could do in a second year. There must have been more than meets the eye with that whole story because to me, you don't fire a coach in what was it, 8 weeks, 9 weeks in the season? After I was watching so many different things there was different pieces on the Carolina Panthers on YouTube, and it looked like every single player was enjoying Frank Reich and enjoying the coaching staff, and all of a sudden everything just started to fall apart. Maybe because of Bryce Young's development. Maybe some of the players don't think Bryce Young is the guy. I don't know what it is. Bringing in a Canales obviously it was because of Bryce Young, but is it going to help the success rate of this team if things start to fall apart? I agree with you, Speedy. This could be a one-and-done year.
Yeah, because it's already starting to fall apart with other things. And the Panthers have one more year left, like you were saying with the Chargers, of an Adam Thielen contract. And that's their only good skill player right now. They don't have much of a running game. Jonathan Mingo, I liked out of the draft, but did not look good last year. And tight end, they're not great. Offensive line, they're not great. And they're going to lose a lot on defense. So they have to be sure that they can at least nail that concept within the game and then be able to rebuild the rest of their roster, because the Panthers are a pretty good player development organization normally, but with this new ownership, they have not been the same. And that's really shying a lot of these other bigger name coaches away. Guys like Ben Johnson, guys like Slowick, they maybe been able to brought in. They interviewed Dan Quinn and they interviewed Vrabel, I think, but that was really it for the experienced coaches. And it's just surprising that a lot of these other coaches, the Panthers didn't want to take the chance of. I think Canales is good, but he's also, like you said, inexperienced, and it's tough to tell if he could do it with two veteran quarterbacks, if he could do it with a rookie quarterback. Speaking with a rookie, we have to transition to our rookie who has a little bit to say over there. Mr. Scoops over here with our Sports Minute.
This is the Sports Loudmouth Sports Minute.
Are you ready to get loud?
With Tommy Scoops.
Once again, giving you all the rundown of the Sports Minute. Me, Tommy Scoops here. And starting off with today's report, in NFL news, Raheem Morris of the Los Angeles Rams defensive coordinator has just been hired as the Atlanta Falcons' new head coach. With many thinking that Bill Belichick was going to be the head coach over there, this is a surprise that a lot of people did not see coming. So this is very interesting within the sport world. In other NFL news, the Panthers just hired Dave Canales, who is the Buccaneers offensive coordinator, and look to get things starting over there, maybe help with the development of Bryce Young. I mean, hey, we all saw how Baker Mayfield play this season, so maybe we'll see Bryce Young play a lot better coming next season. In other NFL news, the AP Award finalists have just been announced earlier today, with players for the MVP award lined up like Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy, Josh Allen, even Dak Prescott and Christian McCaffrey, and many others lined up for today. We shall see within the coming weeks who shall win the MVP and other sports awards that many of us are looking forward to now. In NBA news, Ben Simmons is actually looking to aim to his return to the Brooklyn Nets this Monday. Now, Ben Simmons has actually been away for quite some time back in November. I mean, hey, maybe he'll come back and average about 0 for 11 from the three-point yard instead of, 0 from 8. So We'll see how that goes. And I'm also getting now that the NBA is actually announcing their starters for the NBA All-Star game, with the Eastern Conference lined up with people such as starters with Tyrese Halliburton of the Pacers, Damian Lillard as the other starting guard from the Bucks, Giannis from the Bucks, Jason Tatum from the Celtics, and Joel Embiid. The Western Conference has other players lined up like Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Nikola Jokic, all as our starters. The reserves are expected to be announced very soon, and a lot of the New York Knicks world is not looking forward to if Jalen Brunson isn't going to be on the reserves, so we'll see what's going on with that. Speaking of the Knicks, they are actually just tipping off right now within Scoops' scores. I shall give you that the Knicks are actually tipping off against the Nuggets at the Madison Square Garden. Also later on to tip off is supposed to be the Celtics and Heat, who every time that they go at each other, they actually produce a very, very well game together. So we shall see how that goes. The 76ers are actually leading the Pacers the Pacers are actually leading 34-25 against the Sixers, with the Wizards and Jazz also playing, with the Jazz up 36-29 in the first quarter. That is all the time I have for you guys as of right now. I'll be back with a little bit of an update later on for you guys. I'm going to swing it over to the boys for your next segment.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy PD. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy PD, every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Check out our local listings on our website every single week for all our shows. Game On, The Wise Guys, and The Herd. Every single one of our shows on our network. All you have to do to check it out is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. And as you heard Tommy Scoops, he was talking about the AP voting. Right now, the awards, the most valuable players: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott, and Brock Purdy. I mean, if you look at that and the race of that, it's really, I think it's down to Christian McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen had a sensational second half of the season. I don't know if I would vote Josh Allen as the MVP, maybe because of the first half. I have to see consistency, and Josh Allen was not consistent all season long. Dak Prescott was right there all the way to the end. The last 4 or 5 weeks, Dak's numbers started to fall and started to, obviously drop. And he wasn't the same quarterback he was in the first 10 to 11 weeks. So that was a big problem for Dak. And that's why I think Dak falls out of it. Brock Purdy had a sensational year. But when you're playing on a team with all the type of weapons that he has over there, including Christian McCaffrey, it makes him fall out of that spot. If you were to ask me the top 3 up for the MVP award, it would be Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, and Brock Purdy. Those are the 3 guys. Those are the guys that were the most consistent out of all the players that are available for this voting.
Yeah, usually when you have 2 finalists on the same team, you're going to end up canceling each other out for the most part. I mean, there are exceptions. If Miami were to win the number 1 seed or something, maybe the Tua and Tyreek Hill are there, but they fell apart. And obviously the 49ers, they kept the number 1 seed. But at the same time, they have all these other weapons too. So how much are they helping them? Lamar Jackson individually is the one that did everything on its own amidst injuries too. The Ravens lost Mark Andrews. The Ravens lost 2 running backs. The Ravens lost all these offensive linemen, and Lamar Jackson was still putting up stellar numbers, almost 1,000 yards rushing, 5 rushing touchdowns. If he didn't have a little bit of a slow start like the first 3 games, he probably has all the passing records too, but he still was very consistent with that since that stretch. And that games that he's beaten good opponents in, the Ravens have destroyed teams. He owned the Lions, owned the Seahawks, owned the 49ers, owned the Bengals. These are good teams that the Ravens are destroying by double digits, and all that is because of Lamar Jackson.
And Lamar Jackson right now, to me, is the prototypical champion. He's going to win the most valuable player, but Christian McCaffrey's right behind him. He had a sensational year, probably the second best player in all of football, and it was unbelievable. Tyreek Hill was right onto these guys, and the only reason why Tyreek Hill is not brought up in the conversation is because of the quarterback, and usually most valuable player is won by the quarterback. So Christian McCaffrey has a chance to win. Not likely. I think it's going to be Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar's going to be 1. Christian's going to be number 2 when it comes to the voting, and Brock Purdy number 3. AP Defensive Player of the Year. Daron Bland from the Dallas Cowboys, cornerback. He was fantastic. Had how many interceptions? 8 interceptions?
8, I believe. Yeah.
Max Crosby from the Las Vegas Raiders had a sensational year. Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns had a great year. Micah Parsons and TJ Watt. You know, it's so interesting with this, and I'm very surprised that there are 2 Cowboys that fell in the top 5 for Defensive Player of the Year. And the reason why is the Dallas Cowboys defense in the second half of the season, once again this year, fell apart. And that had a lot to do with the defense. That had a lot to do with Micah Parsons, who didn't have a great second half like he did in the first half. And Daron Bland, he had a good year, and especially filling in for Diggs and Gilmore being the old player that he is, he had a great year. But is he up in the top 3? I don't think so. I think so. If I was voting right now, Daron Bland would be number 5 to me. That's what I would think.
Yeah.
And then number 4 would be Micah Parsons, because Micah Parsons in the second half, he wasn't consistent enough. And in the last 4 games, he completely disappeared on the defensive side of the ball, which hurt the Cowboys at the end of the season. So I'm going to say Micah Parsons falls out of the top 3. At number 3, I would say Max Crosby. Max Crosby had a great year, and some people would say he will be up in the top 2 because of the consistency and what he did. But TJ Watt and Myles Garrett are 2 sensational players, and every single year they're amongst the league's best. And that's why I would put Max Crosby as the 3rd guy. He's the 3rd runner-up. TJ Watt is my 2nd runner-up. TJ Watt had a sensational year. When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, what do they have? They have no quarterback. Their running game is up and down every single game. They don't know who their number 1 wide receiver is. Their offensive line is good, but not great anymore like it was when they had Ben Roethlisberger there. And their defense really is run through TJ Watt. And TJ Watt, losing TJ Watt for that playoff game, who knows? If TJ Watt plays in that game, maybe the game's closer. Maybe TJ Watt helps them win that game. And TJ Watt is he creates so much havoc on the outside when it comes to the defense. And you could put him inside, you could put him on outside. You could do a lot of things with TJ Watt. Losing TJ Watt definitely affected the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I would put him as my number 2. And I believe the MVP for Defensive Player of the Year, is Myles Garrett. He was far and along the best defensive lineman in football. And how many sacks did he have this year? 15, 16?
Myles Garrett had 14 sacks this year.
14 sacks. He was sensational. He dominated the outside. You could put him in the inside. He stopped the run. He did everything this year. He was as good of a defensive lineman as we've seen over the last couple of years. He didn't have 22, 23 sacks like TJ Watt had a couple of years ago, and that's why he won Defensive Player of the Year. But Myles Garrett has been the most consistent defensive lineman in football for the last 5 years.
Yeah, you wonder how much they're going to value the run defense in that marking too, because the Steelers' run defense was still kind of up and down, as was the Raiders. The Raiders were really bad. Now, I don't hold that against Max Crosby because they don't have a lot of other talent on that defensive line, but TJ Watt, they have talent. Alex Highsmith's a good young pass rusher on the other side. They have good interior defensive line play, and Myles Garrett was still good amidst that when the Browns are bringing all these new guys. They brought in Zadarius Smith for the first time. All these new linebackers. They brought in Dalvin Tomlinson and all these other defensive tackles. When the Browns' run defense last year was horrible. So I agree with you. Where Myles Garrett, I think his value is end up going there. Now, Watt had the most sacks and the most QB hits, but yes, I think his run defense of the 3 of them was probably lesser value. Max Crosby is interesting because he had the most total tackles of all the 3 of them and still was very good in the quarterback hits department. But I agree with you. I would give it to Garrett as well. I would go probably Crosby 2 and Watt 3.
Well, a lot of people would go that way too, but I think that TJ Watt changes everything for that Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
Fair enough.
Crosby was great, and Crosby was a big part of the Raiders defense, but Crosby didn't make the playoffs. TJ Watt took his team to the playoffs. He was the reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers were 10-7, and they were the reason, and probably the hardest division in football with no quarterback. Sure. So I think TJ Watt will probably have second in the votings, and he's been a Defensive Player of the Year. So he's been as electric as we've seen a defensive lineman been since his brother JJ, and he's better than his brother as he broke his brother's record in his numbers in 9 years from JJ, who's playing, or 8 years when JJ was playing 13 years. So he's a much better player than JJ. So AP Offensive Player of the Year, Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins, Lamar Jackson, CeeDee Lamb, Christian McCaffrey, and Dak Prescott. So let's go in order. Dak Prescott as my number 5. He falls out of it. Now, Dak had a sensational year offensively, threw over 4,000 yards, threw a significant amount of over 30 touchdowns. He didn't throw as many interceptions as he did last year, as he predicted he wasn't. He was sensational throughout the season. Say whatever you want. He doesn't win the big game. He's beating all the bad teams. Good for you. This guy is the prototypical quarterback that you want on your roster, a guy that's going to help you win, is going to put up numbers every single week, week by week. So Dak Prescott as the number 5. The number 4, it's crazy, but I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had a sensational year. He broke records. He broke Cowboy records. He broke Michael Irvin's records. He broke all the great wide receivers over the years for the Cowboys. This guy, CeeDee Lamb, broke all those records, and I believe he's going to go down as the greatest wide receiver. Yes, Beef, the greatest wide receiver the Cowboys have ever had. Yes, the guy that you didn't want, that you were willing to give up for McKinney, okay? Yes, McKinney, a safety that's probably not going to be on the Giants next year. You decided to not be happy at number 17, landing CeeDee Lamb, who was a top 5 talent, but sensational player. Great season this year, and I expect him to have another great year next year if they can add another offensive talent on the other side of the field with him. So CeeDee Lamb is my number 4. Number 3, I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill was breaking records this year. Some people thought he was going to break over 2,000 yards before he got injured. He wasn't 100% healthy for a couple of games this year. But when he was on the team and he was on the roster, he was breaking 100 yards every single game. He was putting up a touchdown or 2 every single game. He was doing everything and anything. He was a game changer. He's a sensational player, calls himself the cheetah. I love what I see with Tyreek Hill. I think he's so explosive under Mike McDaniel. I question sometimes if he really believes that he's that much better than everybody else on the field. And that's his problem. I think his problem is his cockiness. If he could just go out there and play the game, I think Tyreek Hill would be even better than he is now. It's crazy to say that because he's great right now. If his cockiness just went a little bit away and he didn't open his mouth on and off the field the way he does, I think he'd be even better of a player and might be up there in the voting. I think the reason why he's going to fall out of the top 2 is because of his mouth, because of who he is on and off the field. That's the only reason why. If Tyreek, and then some of the things off the field that he's gone through over the last couple of months, that's going to be a big problem. I don't think they're going to give him Offensive Player of the Year because of that. And like the voters, they look at those things. At number 2, I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson he had a sensational year. He ran over 1,000 yards. He threw over almost 4,000 yards this year. I think 37 to 3,600. He had a sensational 20-something touchdowns, and really without his best player in Mark Andrews all season long. It's been his blanket. They lost their number 1 in J.K. Dobbins early in the season to a torn ACL. And you would have thought that would affect their running game. It didn't. It made their running game better. They used Gus Edwards. They used him in the running game, and it changed everything. Lamar Jackson had a sensational year. He's going to win the MVP. I think that's why the voters are going to kind of move him to number 2. But Christian McCaffrey, and say whatever you want, Christian McCaffrey was the best offensive weapon this year throughout the league. He dominated every single game. He almost broke 100 yards every single game running. He is everything. He is absolutely everything to Brock Purdy. He's everything to the 49ers. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He's a power back. He can run on the outside. He could do everything. And I'm telling you, the Carolina Panthers thinking about that trade now, they're probably wondering why they decided to trade Christian McCaffrey away. He's a sensational player. I think he is Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, when you categorize Offensive Player of the Year, I think that's much more of an individual than Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson winning the MVP has to do a lot more with the team value. And it's the same kind of argument with Adrian Peterson and Peyton Manning. Adrian Peterson, when he won his MVP that year after he came back from all those injuries he had, he was like the entire offense for the Minnesota Vikings. And Lamar Jackson kind of is thought of that way with the Ravens, too. Christian McCaffrey, he's the most electric player. He was out the entire offense for the 49ers. That being said, he should deserve Offensive Player of the Year for that same reason. I think Hill was on the pace for it when he had those records, when he had 1,000 yards through like 7 games or whatever, but he got hurt at the end of the year. And I think that ended up hurting him. And Lamar Jackson, I think, is a good number 2, but I would give it to McCaffrey as well.
AP Offensive Rookie of the Year. And this is a good list, man. I think so many sensational. Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Sam Laporta, Puka Nacua, and then CJ Stroud. I honestly, this is a list. These guys are going to be stars for many, many years to come. So at number 5, I'm probably going to go with Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson in his second half kind of fell off. He wasn't the same running back, maybe because of Smith. I don't know. But Bijan Robinson had a really good starting of the season and then just started to tail off a little bit in that offense, that Atlanta Falcons offense. Nevertheless, Bijan Robinson is going to be a star in this league. At number 4, I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't have a great start of the season. He kind of he was back and forth at the David Montgomery, who came from the Chicago Bears. David Montgomery really started the season very, very strong. When he got hurt, that's when Jahmyr Gibbs really took over and changed the offense for the Detroit Lions and really could be used in so many different ways. He's dangerous catching the ball. You can use him. You could spread him out as a wide receiver. You can use him as a running back. He is the prototypical running back / wide receiver you're going to need moving forward in the NFL if you expect to have a long-lasting career in the NFL. So Jahmyr Gibbs, I would go at number 4. Number 3, I'm going to go with Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta, okay, is going to go and have a very good career in this NFL. In the NFL, I think he's a sensational player. I think he's as good of a tight end we've seen come out of the draft in a very long time. When we speak about Kittles and Kelsey and Andrews and some of these top tight ends, this guy could be better than them. I mean, this guy could block as good as any offensive lineman in the NFL. He's that good. He's a great catch and run type of player. He gets hit. He keeps on going. He's got a tremendous IQ in on the football field, seeing the field for what it is. He barely drops the ball. He has hands like magnets. Sensational player. I love Sam Laporta. As a matter of fact, I might even buy his jersey. I really, really like the kid. I like his personality. I like him off the field. He doesn't say much. When he does speak, he speaks about the team. He doesn't speak about himself. That's the prototypical guy you want. And he's not a guy that likes to be in the tabloids like a Kittles or a Kelsey. He likes to stand back and he likes to be the other guy. That's what I love about Sam Laporta. At number 2, Puka Nacua had a sensational year, was breaking rookie records, had over 100 receptions, had, I think, over 1,500 yards for a rookie. He was unbelievable. In the playoffs, he was unbelievable for the Rams against the Lions. He was the best player on the field. Unbelievable. The guy gets hit after hit after hit and keeps on taking. The guy he plays hurt, he plays injured. He's a sensational player. It was a great find by Shawne McVay in the 5th round. Same thing when you look at Cooper Kupp, it was a 4th round draft pick. I think that Shawne McVay has a knack of finding wide receivers, great young wide receivers. Puka Nacua is going to be one of the great wide receivers we're going to see for many, many years to come. You're going to see him in the top 5 in almost every single statistic every single year. The guy can catch. We've seen him run the ball. We've seen him be used as a running back in the backfield. We've seen him, even because of his size and his ability to see the field, they've put him in the slot as a tight end in some aspects of the offense. And he's not as big as a tight end, but they've used him in those kind of offenses. So I think he's a sensational player. I think he's number 2. And then CJ Stroud. And I think CJ Stroud deserves a lot of credit for everybody that was pouring on him, picking on him, saying the things that they were saying before he was drafted. Some people thought he should have fallen out at the top 10, which is ridiculous. This guy was the best rookie offensive player this year. He did everything for the Texans. He took them all the way to the divisional game. He really gave them a face for their organization, something that they haven't had. And I'll say this, Watson was a great player, but he really wasn't a guy that you wanted to be the face of your organization. CJ Stroud, and I love Watson. I've always liked Deshaun Watson. I loved him with Clemson, and I loved him with the Texans. I think he was robbed for an MVP his last great season before he got injured, and then obviously doing what he did off the field. But CJ Stroud deserves a lot of credit because he was taking over for a quarterback that was one of the better quarterbacks, at one point, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. And some people were questioning if he could fit in with a rookie coach, D'Amico Ryans, who had a sensational year. Everything works when you have a good coach and you have a good quarterback, and they work together, a rookie quarterback, and they have it. D'Amico Ryans is one of the best, I believe, one of the best young coaches in the NFL. And then you have one of the best young quarterbacks that is just going to explode for the next couple of years. And I think the best quarterback in that division, when you have Trevor Lawrence and all those other quarterbacks, and everybody thought Trevor Lawrence was the game changer. I think CJ Stroud is the game changer. So he is my offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, this is a 1A, 1B type thing with Stroud and Puka. Very similar to Justin Jefferson versus Justin Herbert a couple of years ago. I would have given it to Jefferson, but they gave it to Herbert. A quarterback has more valuable. The Chargers were like 4-12 the year before. And that's the same argument with Stroud, but even with less talent than what Herbert had, too, because all these receivers got hurt for the Texans at certain points during the year. Tank Dell right at the end of the season, and then obviously Nico Collins dealing with the injuries that he had, nagging injuries at the end of the year. And no running game whatsoever, the Texans. They were one of the worst rushing offenses in the league. So that probably gives Stroud the ever so slight edge over Puka, because Puka did really well when Kupp was hurt too, and Kyron Williams was hurt, and all these other offensive players that the Rams had on their offensive line hurt. So it's very, very close, but I think the Stroud elevated himself the last month of the season to get it.
All right, defensive rookie of the year, Will Anderson from the Houston Texans, the defensive end. Jalen Carter from the Philadelphia Eagles, defensive tackle. Joey Porter Jr. from Pittsburgh, the corner. Kobe Turner from the Los Angeles Rams, and Devon Witherspoon. Okay, so my number 5, Joey Porter. I think Joey Porter had a sensational year filling in and became the number 1 corner for the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the better defenses in the league. It usually is. I think he's not like his father. Obviously, his father was more of a linebacker and a mean player. Joey Porter is more of a quiet player that goes out there and doesn't showboat like his father did. But I think he's going to be a great player, a great corner. Definitely. And I'll tell you this right now. If Gonzalez didn't get hurt early in the season, he could be up for defensive rookie of the year. He was sensational for the Patriots. But after the 5th game or 6th game, he tore his ACL and he was out for the season. That's the only reason why he's not on this list. But I would say Joey Porter as my number 5. My number 4, I'm going to go with Jalen Carter. And I'm going to tell you why. Jalen Carter did not stay healthy this year. He was in and out of that lineup. If Jalen Carter played 15 or 14 of those 17 games, I think Jalen Carter is the defensive rookie of the year. He is a sensational player. We know what he can do on the field. He fell in the draft, and that's why the Eagles scooped him up. And I think that obviously maybe with Fangio as their defensive coordinator, maybe he can find something in Jalen Carter, in his defense, that can make him explode for what he did over there in Georgia. But I would say Jalen Carter as my number 4. My number 3, I'm going to go with Kobe Turner. Kobe Turner had a really good year as a tackle. Now, obviously, defensive tackle doesn't usually win defensive rookie of the year. It usually never happens, okay? But he had a sensational year. He came out of nowhere. Now, Kobe Turner is a good player. He was a good player in college. Everything about him. He was a first-round talent, okay? So we know what Kobe Turner is, and he had a sensational year on a defense that wasn't supposed to be as good as it was this year. They did have Aaron Donald, but they lost Ramsey. They had to rebuild this defense and really rebuild it with youngsters. And Kobe was a big part of that defense in the growth this year and why they went and they made the playoffs. So Kobe Turner would be my 3. My number 2, Will Anderson. Will Anderson really took off in the second half of the season, really exploded, showed you why he was a top 5 talent last year in the draft from Alabama. Sensational player, can get at the quarterback. He could stop the run, something that he was weak at. When everybody was saying when he was drafted, he needed to fix, he needed to clean up his run stopping. Well, this year with the Texans, he helped. He definitely helped on the run stopping game. And the Texans were one of the best run stopping teams in the NFL. So I thought Will Anderson was the second best defensive player, defensive rookie of the year. And then at number 1, Devon Witherspoon. I watched him play all season long for the Seattle Seahawks. And we all know they drafted one of the better young wide receivers the year before that in the 6th round. This guy is for real. This guy can hit. This guy talks a lot of crap. And you can see him on the field. I love it because the Legion of Boom, Sherman, Thomas, these guys love to speak. Devon Witherspoon, you see him on the field, the confidence level, what he does, he could stop the number one guy on the field. He was sensational this year. I think Devon Witherspoon was my number one.
Yeah, I think you can make a case for all three of your top three because I agree with you. Carter, it kind of took a little while to get going, and he's still kind of rotational. Now, his pressure rate was great. His run defense was a big elevation to the Eagles' run defense being better than they were last year, but still, he didn't get the same level, and he's not going to on that defensive line. But Turner, give Turner a lot of props this year. A guy that had almost 10 sacks. He's playing with Aaron Donald, but the Rams lost A'Shawn Robinson and Greg Gaines. So he essentially had to step in and be their second guy on a team that doesn't have a lot of edge rushing talent. So I think he actually has a legitimate case to win it too. Will Anderson had the most explosive season probably of all three of them. Witherspoon was the most versatile, most well-rounded. So each one has their case. I think Will Anderson will probably get it just because, like you said, he's an edge rusher for a Texans team that doesn't have a lot up front either.
Well, we know who won rookie defensive player of the year last year. So in Sauce Gardner. So that was a corner. So maybe
that's fair.
Maybe Devon Witherspoon wins, or Devin. I call him Devon, but Devin Witherspoon. I call him Devon. But Devin Witherspoon from the Seattle Seahawks. I think he's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. AP Comeback Player of the Year. Cleveland's Joe Flacco, DeMar Hamlin from the Buffalo Bills, Baker Mayfield, Matthew Stafford, and Tua Tagovailoa. Okay, so let's go in order here. At number 5, DeMar Hamlin. Okay, DeMar Hamlin coming back from that dreadful thing that happened to him a year ago, and his heart stopping. It's unbelievable that he actually stepped on a football field this year for the Buffalo Bills, and he's still playing in the NFL. But he didn't do much this year. You know what I'm saying? And I know a lot of people are going to pick DeMar Hamlin to win because of him coming back from that crazy thing that happened to him. And I to me, unbelievably, him coming back from a heart injury like that and actually stepping on a football field and taking the beating week in and week out is a sensational story. But he's not an everyday player. And that's the thing about DeMar Hamlin. So I'm not going to give it to DeMar Hamlin if he's not an everyday player. At number 4, I'm going to go with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco coming back this year, taking over the last 5 weeks of the Cleveland Browns, really help Cleveland Browns get into the playoffs and make a run the way they did. One of the best defenses in the league. He really exploded. He was sitting on his mother and his father's sofa when he got a call from Cleveland. He steps on the field, and then all he did all season long when he came and he started for the Cleveland Browns is put up numbers. So I would say Joe Flacco as my number 4. Number 3, I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford had a great year. Was sensational. What he did with Puka when Cooper Kupp was out of the lineup for the first couple of games because he was coming back from that bad injury, and then having Puka and turning Puka into a superstar right in front of our eyes, and the running game, the opening for Williams and helping Williams develop the way he did, and becoming a leader of this team, really became a real leader of this team. For the first 2 years that he was there, and even when he won the Super Bowl, he wasn't the leader of the team. It was really Aaron Donald's team. But I think for the first time this year, I could say that this team was Matthew Stafford's team. It was him. He was the face of this team. And Aaron Donald, he's starting to break. He's not the same player he once was. And we expect Aaron Donald was an 8-time All-Pro player in a row. I mean, He was on his way to be a 9-time, and he would have been the first to do that. So, and he's going to go down as one of the best defensive linemen we've ever seen. But I think that this year, it was Matthew Stafford team. He was the reason why. He played hurt. He played with injury after injury, and he stayed on the field, and he did everything he can to get this team into the playoffs. So I would put Matthew Stafford as my 3rd. My number 2, Tua Tagovailoa, okay? Tua had a sensational year. He really did. The concussion problems that he had, he didn't run the ball. I think he ran the ball maybe twice all season. He ran the ball one time in the playoff game. I think that was the second time he ran the ball.
It was like the 3rd first down of the game for the Dolphins in the 3rd quarter.
Yeah, so Tua had a fantastic year, did everything. He was up for MVP in the first, I would say, 8 or 9 games. And then numbers started to fall, maybe because Miami started playing better talent. They were playing better teams. And that probably hurt him, especially some of the secondaries he was playing against in the second half of the season. So Tua would be my number 2. My number 1, Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield had made a huge jump this year. He did everything for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. He almost won that playoff game. I honestly, if he didn't make that mistake, or and I don't blame him, because it was at the final 2 minutes of the game. He had to force the ball in a pocket, and things happen. But Baker Mayfield had over 4,000 yards thrown. He threw over 30 touchdowns. He didn't throw as many interceptions as he usually does. He was everything to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was the reason why the Buccaneers made the playoffs. You want to say anything about their defense, Todd Bowles, the way he runs his defense, or even their running game with Rashad, I think that he was everything to their offense. So I would say Baker Mayfield, the AP comeback player of the year.
Yeah, I would give Baker the slight edge over Tua too, just because I think it's a new offense that he had to really rebirth, because we were talking about Canales earlier. Canales came from Seattle, rebirthed Geno Smith, and brought that same offensive concept to Tampa, but we were all thinking, oh, they're going to be a 5-6 win team at best, even in a bad division, and they were very consistent throughout the year too. Baker Mayfield himself was very consistent. Tua had, I think, bigger games, but I think Baker Mayfield had more consistency, and Tua had a lot more to work with around him, and obviously has Mike McDaniel as his coach.
AP Assistant Coach of the Year, Ben Johnson for the Detroit offensive coordinator, Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, Mike McDonald, Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator, Todd Malkin, Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, the Cleveland Browns defensive coordinator, and Bobby Slowick, the Houston Texans offensive coordinator. Okay, at number 5, Bobby Slowick. He had a great year. C.J. Stroud, fantastic year offensively. Nobody thought that C.J. Stroud and this offense was going to be what they were. They lost Dell in the middle of the season, which affected their offense. Still was a big part of their team. But it really was the defense that really transitioned this team. The Texans' defense really took over in the second half. Their offense did produce, but it was their defense that really, and that had a lot to do with their coach, DeMeco Ryans. So I that's why I think Slowick falls to number 5. At number 4, I'm going to go with Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz, he's a great defensive coordinator. We all know what he is. We also know him as a coach. He was there with the Lions. He wasn't successful as a head coach over there, but he's a great defensive coordinator. Everywhere he's gone, he's been successful as defensive coordinator. He had the best defense throughout the league, the best defense. But again, a defense that had a lot of deficiencies, especially in the second half of the season. And teams started to see that and started to read that. And it was a problem in the playoffs when he played against a young Texan team. So I would put Jim Schwartz as the number 4. At number 3, I'm going to go with Todd Monken, okay, the Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator. The Baltimore Ravens offense was sensational. They didn't have Mark Andrews. They had a young player in Flowers that really developed right in front of our eyes. And they likely played very well this year, filling in for Mark Andrews. And Lamar Jackson was sensational offensively. But Lamar Jackson can play for any offensive coordinator. He is going to make everybody look good because of his legs and his ability to see the field the way he does. So I'm going to put Todd Monken as the third place, backup. So third runner-up. Our second runner-up, Mike McDonald. Okay, Mike McDonald arguably changed the Baltimore Ravens defense. Honestly, this guy took over for some of the great defensive coordinators. He took over for Wink Martindale when he went to the Giants. Okay, and some people were questioning Mike McDonald, a young kid taking over. What does he know? What is he this? What is he that? Taking over for a team that's always had a very good defense. And boy, oh boy, he has been as good of a defensive coordinator as we've seen since Rex Ryan. I'm going to tell you this right now. This guy should get a job. Him and Ben Johnson should have a job at the end of the season. It'll be a shame that they're not, because they're still in it and they're not interviewing for jobs. They're not allowed to interview for jobs until the Super Bowl, which sucks for them because they're not going to get a chance to even interview for any of those open vacancies because they're practically all filled. Right. So Mike McDonald as my number 2. And the winner as the assistant coach of the year is Ben Johnson. Even though I don't think he's a $15 million coach, I think he did wonders for Jared Goff. Jared Goff has become one of the top 5, top 6 quarterbacks in the NFL. He changed it. Usually, Sean McVay is a great offensive mind, great, sensational offensive mind. And Sean McVay couldn't fix Jared Goff. Okay, he couldn't. He goes over there to Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson changed everything for Jared Goff. He sees the field better. He's become more of a leader. He's been, he could call plays at the line of scrimmage, which he couldn't do with Sean McVay because Sean McVay was calling the plays at the line of scrimmage. Everything. And then look at the running game. Montgomery and Gibbs, and then Laporta, and then St. Brown and Williams, all the weapons that they had. He's developed all these kids, sensational offense, and one of the best offensive lines in football, if not the best offensive line in football, with Panay Sewell, as I believe the best tackle in all of football.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Ravens, I've been picking them to do well for years, and I went against it this year because of all their injury management issues. But these two assistant coaches both did a phenomenal job. The defensive side of the ball, they lost Marlon Humphrey for a lot of the year. They lost a lot of their defensive linemen. Marcus Williams was in and out with injury and really struggling even since he's come back. And Mike McDonald, who I thought did horrible last year, did a great job this year with a lot of the veteran talent and even some of the young talent. Matabuke, a couple of our guests were talking about, had an all-pro year. Kyle Hamilton, everyone thought was a bust right away, and he's great now. And offensively for Monken, I think he did a great job with all those injuries too. But I'm going to give the slight edge to McDonald just because I think Lamar Jackson helped improvise with the offense a little more. So I would give him a little bit of an edge. And you're right, it's a shame he's not going to get head coaching up because I think the team that was most interested in him was Washington, but they're probably going to bring in Ben Johnson. So
That's
it's a shame
going
for
to
him.
happen. But Mike McDonald will have a job next year. If it's not with with another team, they'll be. This year, he's not going to get a job because of what's going on with Baltimore. And they're probably going to the Super Bowl if some crazy thing happens. Kansas City, everybody thinks is going to win.
I'll argue with Wes later.
Yeah, but whatever. I think that Mike McDonald should have a job at the end of this year. But if he misses out on a job next year, he'll have a job. There'll be a ton of jobs that are going to be available next year. The Jets might be one of them. Okay. And McDonald could definitely be one of those guys, one of the young guys that the Jets want to bring in. So who knows? And that's just one team. There could be a ton of other teams. The Saints, I think they could be looking for a new coach next year. There's quite a few of them that might be looking for new jobs and looking for new coaches. So Ben Johnson, I think, is the AP Assistant Coach of the Year. And now the AP Coach of the Year. And it's so hard with this because there's so many good ones. There really is. Dan Campbell from the Detroit Lions had a sensational year. John Harbaugh from the Baltimore Ravens, arguably the best team in the NFL. D'Amico Ryans from the Houston Texans. Look what he did with the Houston Texans as a rookie coach. Kyle Shanahan from the San Francisco 49ers and the numbers they put up this year with the talent that they have. And then there's Kevin Stefanski with the Cleveland Browns, who really, I think, is one of the most underrated coaches in the NFL. That's how good he is. But at number 5, I'm going to go with Kevin Stefanski. I think Kevin Stefanski had a great year, sensational year with arguably the best defense in the league. A quarterback woes that they had with Watson, they still found a way to get into the playoffs and compete against the Texans, a team that a lot of people thought it was over after Watson was hurt. They had 2 backup quarterbacks and Tompkins and all these other guys they were adding. None of it worked. And then they reach out to Joe Flacco, old man Joe, and they found a way to get into the playoffs and sneak into the playoffs. That has a lot to do with coaching. So Kevin Stefanski would be my number 5. My number 4, I'm going to go with John Harbaugh. And everybody's going to say, how could you go with John Harbaugh? Blah, 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 blah. He had the best record. He was the best coach in the NFL because he had the best record and he had the best team. Talent sells everything. And John Harbaugh had the most talent in the NFL. He has the best defense. He has the best secondary. He has one of the better offensive lines in football. He has one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He has great young talent on the offensive side of the ball as well. They can run the ball in many different areas. They have 3 great running backs, good running backs. And, before even when they lost J.K. Dobbins, they had Hill, they had a good running game and Gus Edwards, they can run the ball. So I think that I can't look at John Harbaugh and I can't give him credit for what he's done as a coach, but there are other coaches that deserve a lot of credit with less. So I'm going to go with John Harbaugh as my number 4. My number 3, Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan had a great year. His San Francisco 49er team put up the numbers. They had one of the best offenses in the league. They have the best running back in the league. They have 2 great wide receivers in Deebo Samuels and Ayuk. And they have the best tight end in football in George Kittle. Finally staying healthy for a full season, and now he's an all-pro player once again. I think Kyle Shanahan, and he developed Brock Purdy. He really did. He helped develop Brock Purdy, a 7th-round draft pick. You give him a lot of credit. So I'm going to give him my number 3, a third runner-up. My number 2. Now, this is so interesting because I think you could go back and forth with these two guys. But I'm going to go number 2, DeMeco Ryans. I think DeMeco Ryan, a lot of people are going to pick DeMeco because of what he did with the Texans and how he won that division at the end of the season with a rookie quarterback, with a bunch of rookies, with a bunch of young players, with a new coaching staff. DeMeco Ryans deserves a lot of credit. He is a great defensive mind. He was calling the defensive plays for the defense and really helped develop Will Anderson and some of the defensive players that they brought into the draft in the offseason. I really like DeMeco. I think DeMeco is going to be here for many, many years to come, and he's going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. But I just think he fell a little short. I think Dan Campbell was the coach of the year. Everything that he did with the Lions, everything that he said he was going to do with the Lions and build this team from top to bottom, he took one of the worst franchise in the NFL. Worst franchises. This is, you can argue it was them and the Jets and the Browns, okay? Yeah. Those are the 3 worst franchises. He took this franchise and built him from square one. He was a part of the drafting of St. Brown. He was part of the drafting of Laporta. He was part of the trade to bring in Jared Goff. He was part of the team when they brought in Penei Sewell. He was there for everything. And he started from the bottom and took them to the top. And I think Dan Campbell deserves a lot of credit. I love his personality on the sidelines. I love that he goes for it when 4th and 1 and 4th and 2. He's the only coach I could see that's crazy enough on his own 30 to go on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, which is nuts, but he does it all the time. He even went they were on the 1-yard line against the Cowboys, and they went 4th and 2 twice, and they didn't win because of that. They didn't even go to the overtime. They probably win that game. So Dan Campbell, he's got a set of kahunas. I think I would love to see them in the Super Bowl. I love everything about Dan Campbell. I really do. I think he's one of the most underrated coaches, and I don't think people understand what he did for the Detroit Lions organization and how good this team is going to be for many, many years to come. And he is going to be there for a very long time. So Dan Campbell as my number 1.
Yeah, I think you're splitting hairs with the 4. I would put Kyle Shanahan number 5 because I think he didn't do as well when players got hurt. And even though the 49ers are number 1 seeded best offense, I think they still had a lot of talent to work with. But everyone else really did a good job working with the injuries, the Browns especially. All these offensive linemen that get hurt. All these different skill players that get hurt. Chubb at the beginning of the season. And you look at somebody like Deshaun Watson going down. All these quarterbacks they had to shuffle through too. Stefanski deserves a lot of credit. DeMeco Ryans, I will give him a lot of credit too, because all these new defensive players, all these Jets fans, remember Sheldon Rankins and Blake Cashman? All those guys had great years with the Texans. When Derek Stingley was hurt, all those guys made a difference in terms of getting that secondary going. The run defense, which was one of the worst in the league last year, was great. John Harbaugh, too, with the offensive guys, too. But I give the coordinators more credit for that. So he would probably be 4 for me. And I would say Dan Campbell did a great job as well doing that. But I would give it to DeMeco Ryans, considering how bad the Texans were supposed to be and all the management. Stefanski is a very close second for me.
Really? You have Stefanski as
yeah, because I think the Browns really were so decimated on offense. And I think them getting to the playoffs in that tough division the way they did was really impressive.
I mean, look what Dan Campbell did in that division. And for everybody that was taking shots of the Lions, they were the laughing stock of the league. And really the development of some of these young players, and even the quarterback, Jared Goff, who lost confidence when he was traded over here. Some people thought that they were going to look for a quarterback in the draft last year. And he really built the character of Jared Goff. And Jared Goff, I believe, as it has been as good a quarterback this year as any quarterback in the NFL. So I don't think people give Dan Campbell enough credit. I thought he was the best. Okay. I really do. He won 12 games this year. I mean, he was 12-5, I think it was. Yeah. I mean, he had the best record out of all of them, except John Harbaugh. And that says a lot about who he is and what he's done. And yes, the conference is easy. The NFC is easy. But go look at the teams that the Detroit Lions beat too. They didn't beat crappy teams. They beat good teams too. So very surprised when you were looking at some of these coaches of the year, how you set it up. And why would you put Stefanski over a guy like Dan Campbell?
I just think he did well managing the injuries on that offense. Like, I mean, besides Amari Cooper and Njoku, like really everyone else stayed healthy. and everyone else wasn't healthy. Nick Chubb had that gruesome injury at the beginning of the year. 3 offensive linemen go down.
I had a pretty good backup running back.
I know. I'm not disputing that Jerome.
They had 2 good ones.
Right. And I think that gives him credit for a good running scheme to make that work. And I think Stefanski, if he didn't have that, the Browns would go nowhere. Even with the defense would be a lot like the Jets, like great, but on the field a ton too, if that offense wasn't as good as it was. So I still give him a lot more cojones. Like Will Kunkel was discussing last week, I think it's really a neck and neck with those two. I would put Campbell as a slight third. I just think they didn't have as much, like, in terms of deal with the injuries the same way. And I think, like you're saying, John Harbaugh didn't have as high because he had all the talent around him. But I think it's just in that division, especially, it's very hard for the Browns doing what they did.
So the only disagreement we had was Coach of the Year.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I can see the argument for Puka.
So who do you have for most valuable player?
I have Lamar Jackson.
I have Lamar Jackson. Defensive Player of the Year.
Defensive player of the year, I have Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett too. Who do you have for Offensive Player of the Year?
Offensive Player of the Year, I have CMC.
I have Christian McCaffrey. Who do you have for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
I have Stroud. Yep.
I have CJ Stroud. Yep. And AP Defensive Player of the Year?
You mean Rookie of the Year?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I'll give Anderson that one.
I'm going to go with Witherspoon. Okay. AP Comeback Player of the Year.
That one I will give to Baker Mayfield.
I'm going to go with Baker too. AP Coach of the Year.
That one I'm going to give to DeMeco Ryans.
I have Dan Campbell. And AP Assistant Coach of the Year.
I gave it to Mike McDonald.
I'm going to go with Ben Johnson. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are our picks. We went through every single award, and we gave you reasons why we went in that order. Me and Speedy were practically on every single one of them, except maybe 2 of them. I disagree. I don't think people understand what Dan Campbell did for the Detroit Lions. Okay. He changed everything. The attitude around the Detroit Lions. Look at how many stars, look how many musicians come out and watch the games now. They pack out stadiums. I remember, I'll tell you guys this, for years. I remember when Sam Darnold in week 1 played the Detroit Lions a couple of years ago. I think it was Sam's second year. When I watched that game on Monday Night Football, I'll never forget it. There was nobody in that stadium. Nobody wanted to go and see the Lions play. Nobody had any interest. I think Caldwell was the coach, I think, that year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm not guaranteeing it, but I remember it was either him or Schwartz was the coach of that team. And I'll tell you this. Since Dan Campbell has taken over for that team, they pack out every single game. That stadium is always filled. The fans are crazy over there. It's one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL. And that says a lot about the organization and the transition of the organization and the coaching of that organization with the defense and the offense. Both guys are going to get a coaching job in a very, very near future. In Ben Johnson and also our friend from the New York Jets, if you know what I'm talking about, Speedy. But I think Dan Campbell deserves a lot of credit, and that's why I give him Coach of the Year. DeMeco Ryans would be my number 2, and I would say Kyle Shanahan would be my number 3. Stefanski had a great year, and I give him my 5th, but and it says a lot about who he is in the coach. I think he's one of the most underrated coaches in the NFL. And John Harbaugh, he had the best team. It's very hard to pick a coach, even though he had the best record and his numbers are like they have the best defense, one of the top 5 defenses in the league, one of the top 6 offenses in the league, and all that other stuff. It's hard to pick against John Harbaugh, but when you have all that talent, talent wins. I don't care what anybody says. If you know how to coach talent, you're going to win. Look at San Francisco. Look at the talent that they have. Is Kyle Shanahan the best coach in the NFL? Everybody knows my feeling to Kyle Shanahan. I think he's one of the most overrated coaches in the NFL. But guess what? When you have Deebo Samuels, you have Christian McCaffrey, you have George Kittles, you have Ayuk, you have all these players, and you have also a guy named Trent Williams, who's you can argue is the best tackle in football, and a great defense. Do you want to go through the defensive players they have over there? One of the best defenses, and not only that, they have Nick Bosa on the other side of the field with all the other talent that they have, and Warner and everybody else. So that's why I don't put Kyle Shanahan in the top 3, top 2. Kyle Shanahan deserves credit, but I don't think he'll ever win Coach of the Year in my eyes because I think he has a tremendous amount of talent. All right, when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we haven't had him on for over a year and a half. The last time I think we had him on was during COVID.
It was when Tyler was with us. It was,
it was during COVID.
2021, I believe.
During COVID. That was during COVID. 2020 and 2021 was during COVID. When we come back, we will be talking to former Chargers and Bills all-pro linebacker and the founder of Lights Out Extreme Fighting, Shawne Merriman, here on the Sports Loudmouth.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouth.
I could rap. I'll put a little freeway to it, a little jump. I don't know if anybody remembers Freeway from Philadelphia, but I was a big Freeway fan. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy PD. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy PD every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and listen to all our local listings is you go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we haven't had him on for almost 2 years. It's been a long time. Still looks good. Still looks young. I think he could play football for a couple more years. We're now talking to former Chargers and Bills all-pro linebacker and the founder of Lights Out Extreme Fighting, Shawne Merriman. Shawne, what's up, man?
Yo, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Well, you look good, man. You look healthy. You look fit. Obviously, you're training, you're fighting, and that's that's mixed martial arts, man. I know all about it.
Yeah, look, I try to stay fit, man. I'm about to be 40 this year. But I try to tell, because I'm in the fight business, obviously, right? So I try to tell a lot of these former guys that when you get done, pick up some form of fighting, boxing, Muay Thai, some grappling, jiu-jitsu, pick something up, man, because it's good for you. Stay in shape, stay disciplined, and body will still keep feeling good. So
you're 39 years old and you're complaining that you're going to be 40. I'm 41. I'm older than you.
But okay? No, I played football, so I'm like 62 adult years.
Well, you don't look at it. You don't look like you look 60. And by the way, I watch some of your training programs that you do on Snapchat. I follow you. I watch you. You're in good shape, man. And I have to give you a lot of credit because there's a lot of football players, and we've had them on the show. They break down. They don't look the same. They're not. Their bodies aren't the same. You actually look like you could play football again if you really want to.
Yeah, I could. You know what? In fact, the Chargers had like a celebrity charity flag football game a couple months ago, and I played the whole game, but I was sore for about a week and a half. So that whole football shit just went out the door, and I was like, you know what? I'm done. Because I think most of us, when we get done mentally, like we think we can still go out there and do it. Every couple of years, you get further away from the game, and your body just changed. You're like, flag football is enough for me. I'm good on that.
We'll get into some MMA with you before we let you go, but I want to get into football. The Chargers make a move. They bring in Jim Harbaugh. What were your thoughts when they brought in Jim Harbaugh? Do you think that this changes everything for the Chargers moving in this year?
It changes a lot, but not like how from the outside looking in, right? You bring in a coach, you're going to win a Super Bowl. Like that can't be the mentality. The mentality has to be that you got to get the guys to buy in first. You got to win the division first because just what happens in your division are the defending Super Bowl champs, right? So the mentality has to grow in increments. You can't, fall into the press, the media, and all the outside hoopla we brought in Jim Harbaugh, we're gonna win a ring. It don't work that way. Even if you got a coach that's been there before, played in the Super Bowl or played NFC championship games before, even if you have that can't be the mentality walking in the door.
So the Chargers defense, a lot of high-priced guys that didn't work out. Khalil Mack, they might be thinking of trading. Joey Bosa. What do you think has to be the approach, especially with the Chargers salary cap situation? And Jim Harbaugh, what do you think he'll bring to that defense with a good dating well with the Michigan defense?
Well, for one, it's going to be hard to move a guy. I don't care what his price tag is when he just has 17 sacks, right? So something has to be worked out with that. I mean, I hope that he remains with the Chargers. They did just draft the young kid out of USC, Tully. He's really, really good. He's going to be a star. Bosa's another one that's kind of been banged up and hit, another big cap hit. So there's going to be some moving parts. There's no doubt about that. But you still got Derwin James there. Kenneth Murray doesn't get enough credit. He actually balled out Eric Kendricks. They got guys. So that's the whole exciting part about Jim Harbaugh coming in. Not just how great of a coach he is, it's what he got to work with when he get there.
As everybody knows, we are talking to former Chargers and Bills All-Pro linebacker and the founder of Lights Out Extreme Fighting, Shawne Merriman. Shawne, Justin Herbert doesn't get enough credit. I know everybody says, oh, he's one of the best young quarterbacks in the league, but for the last couple of years, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. He hasn't had the right coaching. Jim Harbaugh comes in. You've seen what he's done with Alex Smith. You saw what he did with other quarterbacks and Colin Kaepernick, and he took those players all the way to back-to-back NFC title games and to a Super Bowl and almost knocked off his brother in the Baltimore Ravens. What are your thoughts with Jim Harbaugh being over there? Does that help Justin Herbert's development moving forward?
Yeah, no doubt about it. But look at, Jim Harbaugh has been very public talking about Justin Herbert and how great he is. It's almost kind of a sick situation because he's been manifesting this thing for some time. Obviously, with him playing there with the team, he got relationships there, the connections there, right? He's played for the Chargers. But also, too, man, I think that, when you look at a situation, when's the last time Jim Harbaugh's walked into a place and had a guy like Justin Herbert? Never, right? And so when you look at it, it's an instant upgrade from anything he's ever had. He can come in and establish an identity to that team, which he is a character. He's a identity person. As soon as he walk in that door, is Jim Harbaugh. His resume speaks for itself. But that's what the team was missing, man. They was missing that leadership. Somebody's going to kind of come in and get them to buy in. They haven't had that in a while. And outside of Justin Herbert having a great coach, he's had so many of them. Like, think of the offensive coordinators he's had in his career. Like, how can you catch a rhythm? How can you be good? How can you grow when every year somebody new is coming in?
So what about the rest of the offensive skill players? Austin Eckler, they got to pay if they want to. Saying don't pay the running backs, and then you have all these receivers besides Keenan Allen that kept getting hurt. Like, what do you think is the best trajectory for the Chargers when it comes to dealing with that?
You're going to look at a couple of things, right? I mean, Austin Eckler's getting up there in age. Obviously, as the running back position, it happens. I think he can still go. He got another year or two in him. But you definitely want to have somebody back to complement him. You always want that 1-2 punch, regardless even if you got a really reliable running back, you need two, right? In my opinion, you need two. Keenan Allen is he's getting up there in age, but he's still effective. He's still putting up Pro Bowl numbers. He's still going out there and getting it done. They got to figure out what they want to do with the young kid they just drafted, Quentin Johnson. They got to get him. They got to get him active. They got to get him going. If Jim Harbaugh can't get him going in his second year, then he's probably not the guy, and they probably missed from the draft pick. I personally believe that they got something in him. He's lightning fast. I think he needs to be more of a hands catcher, not a body catcher. He needs to get better with his route running and learn the playbook. And so this is the year that he can find his way in or find his way out, right? It can go either way. But it's a lot of weapons, man. If you're Jim Harbaugh, we're looking at this thing from the outside looking in, and you were ever going to make that NFL jump, you looking at these weapons like, okay, this is time to do it.
Shawne, another team that you played for was the Buffalo Bills, and they really took off in the second half, and it was because of Josh Allen. And a lot of people were throwing Sean McDermott and his name under the bus. Now he's keeping his job, hopefully moving forward. But Josh Allen has been taking abuse by Stefon Diggs and Trayvon Diggs. Everybody's throwing, and this guy just stands there. He takes it. He doesn't throw anybody on the bus. What are your thoughts to Josh Allen? Do you think that Josh Allen has handled this better than any quarterback you've ever seen?
I think he handles a lot better than any quarterback we've ever seen. And for one, Josh Allen is one of those quarterbacks, right, that they win the game, he throw interceptions, nobody say anything. They lose, he throw interceptions, the same amount of interceptions. Oh, everything's because of him, right? But you got no problem with him, dicing the ball between two guys or jumping, hurtling over a linebacker, lowering his shoulder against strong safeties. You got no problem with that aspect, but you're looking for a finger to point when they don't win. That's kind of been the attitude up there. And sometimes it comes when you're a quarterback and you're so pulverizing, you're so talented that you get a brunt of that. They're going to make a problem between Josh Allen and Diggs, even though they got and I'm speaking from firsthand knowledge, they got a great relationship. And so, it's just when you're in the cuffs as much as they are, and they have been the last couple of years, people are getting frustrated when they don't get over the hump. But it's just looking the finger point.
Yeah, you mentioned Stephon Diggs, and they had the quote-unquote off-season riff, which I thought was a bit overblown too. But now this season, again, just Stephon Diggs, since they switched offensive coordinators, was not the same player. Like, even from a football perspective, do you think the Bills could benefit moving on from him, or would you still hang on to him?
I mean, he's still a top-tier wide receiver. And, the problem is, you even think about moving Stephon Diggs, where you going to go? To be honest, right? The only way you could upgrade in that position, bringing in Justin Jefferson, maybe. I mean, you have to go out and find a plus wide receiver to replace Stephon Diggs, because that's what he is. He's an A+ wide receiver. So if you're going to make that move, you got to bring somebody else in who's going to pick up the slack. I think that you don't mess up that chemistry. For whatever reason, I know that Josh Allen missed on a couple crossing patterns. He had a couple missed opportunities in that game. But for the most part, him and Diggs are like this. They're on the same page, and they work in tandem, hand in hand. So if you're going to go and disturb that, you better be upgrading immediately.
We are talking to former Chargers and Bills All-Pro linebacker and founder of Lights Out Extreme Fighting, Shawne Merriman. Shawne, you look at the team, the Bills, and their defense. They had a lot of injuries. They lost Milano early in the season. That was a big loss. He's one of the best run stoppers. You're a linebacker. He's a linebacker. So you were a great run stopper too. So it plays a big part of your defense when you lose a significant piece like that. Von Miller coming back this year, he's not the same player. He's making a lot of money. They're in cap hell too themselves. What are your thoughts, and what do you think the Buffalo Bills need to do in the offseason to make this defense even better?
Look, they need to get younger, right? No doubt about that. No offense to my boy Von Miller, love him to death. He'll go down as one of the best to ever do it. But it's getting that time now. Your body's starting to slip a little bit. You're not as explosive. He did have some really good plays, some TFLs in that game, on the run game, but he wasn't effective in the pass rushing game. Is why he's there, right? And so they need to go and start getting younger. Their biggest problem is the fall off. When, like you just mentioned, guy gets hurt, that second string guy can't go in and fill out. So then you need to go out and get some depth, right? So your starter go down, your D lineman go down, linebacker go down. Somebody needs to come in, and they can't be that big of a drop off. And that's what happened throughout the course of the year.
So what are the remaining 4 playoff teams? What do you see with the NFC and AFC championship games? And what do you think 4 teams are the biggest threat for the Super Bowl right now?
I like the Ravens on the AFC side. And there's nothing against Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs. For one, how the hell they even got the AFC championship game this year? I don't even understand, because they're not as good as they once was. They're not as dominant as they once was. And yet they find themselves back in the AFC championship game for the possibilities of getting another Super Bowl ring. But I love the Ravens. I love the Ravens, man. I love the brand of football they're playing right now. I love the focusedness. You hear Lamar Jackson after these interviews, man, like media is trying to bait him into answering these questions about the Super Bowl and next year. And he's like, hey, look, I'm trying to focus on tomorrow. And he's so locked in. We haven't seen this level of Lamar Jackson, Flowers, Odell, and that defense. Those 2 inside linebackers, man, these guys will line up and just kick you straight in the teeth. I mean, these guys are physical as hell. Love watching them play. So I got the Ravens on the AFC side. I got the Lions, man, on the NFC. I've been talking about the Lions before the season started. The last year and how they finished up with that level of momentum that they had last year and how they ended the season. Going into this year, before they played the Kansas City Chiefs that first game, I was telling everybody, I said, do not be shocked if not only they beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but these guys end up in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. I'm telling you right now, because that division that they're playing in has gotten weaker when Aaron Rodgers left. And don't get me wrong, Jordan Love has played great, but he's not Aaron Rodgers, right? And so at the end of the day, I really think that this is the Lions' opportunity. If they're going to do it at any point in time, these last 30-something years, the last time they've been, this is the year that they can do it.
You know, you brought up Aaron Rodgers, and a lot of Jet fans, you know, they love the fact that they made the move for Aaron Rodgers, and hopefully he stays healthy next year and shows why he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But a lot of people from the Green Bay Packers fans and organization keep throwing, oh, we got the next Aaron Rodgers. We got this. And Jordan Love's sensational. He had a great year, but he's not Aaron Rodgers. You played against Aaron Rodgers. Tell everybody why Aaron Rodgers was so special.
You know, we got these categories of elite. We got good quarterbacks. We got above average quarterbacks. And we got just some guys that just dance around. There's only 2 or 3 elite guys in the NFL, right? And when I say elite, is meaning that you don't need a number 1 wide receiver. You don't need a 3 or 4 Pro Bowlers, all pros on your offensive line. You don't need a star running back. And you go out there, and Aaron Rodgers has played without a number 1 wide receiver for a very long time when he was with Green Bay. He got these guys in the playoffs multiple times. Aaron Rodgers didn't get that all-star defense across the board that we've had. So the elite quarterbacks can go out and win football games, and they don't need an entire staff around to go out and do it, right? You take a Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott got 2 or 3 all-pros in the offensive line. They got a stand-up stout wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb. They got the best pass rusher or top 2 or 3 pass rusher in Micah Parsons. You got, 2 cornerbacks. So you get what I'm saying? Like, yes, you got these quarterbacks that's above average. That you put some people around them, they're gonna win some football games. Aaron Rodgers is elite. He played without these star-studded guys for a number of years and still went out there and got it done.
So before you and Errol talk about some MMA, I just wanted to mention you have an event coming up here on the 16th.
Yeah, we got a huge event. Yeah, February 16th, we'll be in Long Beach, California. Lights Out Xtreme Fighting 14. You can get all your information at lightsoutxcept.com. We'll be live on Fubo TV, Fubo Sports. If you guys don't have Fubo, make sure you get it. But this one's our biggest and most explosive card we've had in the history of the company. I do really believe we got a couple guys in this card that'll end up in the UFC at some point.
You know, it's so crazy because my friend actually has an organization out here, and I DJ and I promote and I broadcast. I do play-by-play for mixed martial arts. So if you ever need anybody to do play-by-play television, I could do it. I know a lot about mixed martial arts. I was a fighter myself. I have a black belt in judo, Kempo black belt. I have a purple belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I was a boxer. I love the box, and it's great. But tell us a little bit about your organization, Lights Out Xtreme Fighting. What came about from this? What made you get involved in the mixed martial arts world?
I started training, man, back in between 2005 and 2006, that off season, man. I literally wanted to do it, just get my hands better, get more violent, get more active with my hands. Being outside linebacker and pass rusher, I was told that it can help. I did, and I just fell in love with the sport, man. I started training with all the big name guys every off season. I'll get in there, and every offseason I'll just pick up the pace a little bit. I started sparring, doing more on the ground and jiu-jitsu, and just start, getting more involved in it, man. But ultimately, I do think that most, if not all, retired athletes should pick up some discipline. I'm a big fan of that. I even still nowadays I'll go spar once in a while. I'll have an open mat, go in there and get some work, but it just keeps you disciplined. I ended up launching Lights Out Xtreme Fighting in 2019. We got hit with the pandemic. We were shut down for about 2 years, almost of it. So the restart of it on Fubo, we are now like top 5 or top 6 or something like that, most watched on Fubo Sports. And so the viewership has been great. But that's more importantly because the fans out there, they love what they're doing. They loving these fights, man. This last fight, our main event, was probably one of the best main events I've ever seen in MMA fights ever. Wow. Like in all fights. We had one of the best finishers, and people keep coming out, man. We sell out crowds, and it's no different from this fight coming up February 16th. We actually, on that flyer, you see the guy with the belt across his chest. That's Tom Yaron. That's Tony Ferguson's guy. The guy on the right of him is Abel Morales. He fought in the UFC for a bit. He's fighting for us, trying to get back to the UFC. We got AJ Hodgkins on this opening the card at the night, former linebacker, and went linebacker for Oregon. So we're stacked up, man. We got a staff on this one.
Now, did you watch the UFC fights this past weekend?
I did, yeah.
I thought Strickland got absolutely robbed. I think he got robbed. He had the jab working. He completely shut out Duplessis. Plessis. I always mess up his name, but he shut his eye, and I thought it was a very close fight. It was very close. I felt like obviously Strickland got taken down a couple of times in the fight, and I think that was the reason why he lost the fight. But all in all, I thought Strickland, if anything, was a draw, then it was a Duplessis.
I'm with you. I thought it was a draw at best. But I got this understanding, like if someone's a champ, you gotta be so convincing in your win to take the belt from them. It can't be a 50-50. It can't go the other way. If you're gonna take the belt from somebody, you gotta dominate them.
Mm-hmm.
That's my feeling when it comes to championship fights. The belt doesn't go anywhere unless you dominate them, and it's so convincing that it wasn't a close fight. But if it's somewhere close, you make it a draw and you get these guys to go at it again. But you can't. It can't be I don't know if this guy won and take the belt from a guy that it could have gone either way, right? You got to really take the belt from the champ.
And it's Duplessis. Okay. So I always mess up his name when I'm speaking everything. And I think because he was South African, he's the first South African to fight for a title and win a title. I think the UFC wanted to bring in more fans. And I think that's the draw to have him. And he'll fight Strickland again. And I think it'll be a great fight. I was shocked. But who's your favorite fighter right now in the UFC? What stands out? Is it O'Malley? What Leon Edwards? Who is it?
I'm a big fan of obviously Connor, but he hasn't fought in a while. Right behind him, I would say Izzy. Izzy's up there. But I know all these guys, man. I train at the gym with Strickland, and Curtis is in there all the time. And I see these guys on a regular basis. But I really, really enjoy watching Izzy fight. Love his style.
I love the wrestling, and I think that some of these guys don't understand it. Everybody keeps talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and all the judo and Muay Thai, everything that they're learning, but wrestling is the core. If you're a good wrestler and you know how to shoot in Greco-Roman wrestling, you're going to be you have a good technique, and you could start off. You don't have to be a good person. I've seen technically a wrestler completely dominate a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I think that's so important, and that's why I like Alexander Volkanovski. I think he's one of the more underrated fighters in the UFC. He'll fight you. It doesn't matter if it's 2 weeks. He'll fight you in different weight classes. I love him. I think he's a special fighter and one of the best wrestlers I've seen in a very long time.
No question.
Anyways, I know you're busy, so we're going to let you go. We'd love to get you on a lot sooner than later. I don't want to go 2 years without talking to you, Shawne. I don't know if you know, but we're bringing in, and I want to make an announcement right now because I don't think people know. And Speedy, I'll let you make the announcement.
So we are bringing in former NFL nose tackle, defensive tackle. You probably played against him because he was with the Kansas City Chiefs for a while and other AFC teams. Shawne Smith is actually coming on to join the Sports Loudmouth.
Awesome, man. Congrats. That's massive.
Yes, Shawne's a great personality. I think he's going to add a lot of different, personality to the show, and it'll be fun. But we love you, Shawne. Keep up the good work, and let's be in touch, man. I would love to see what you're doing. If you come to New York, your organization comes to New York, or even I'll go to LA, man. I would love to see what your organization is doing right now. I have a bunch of great amateur organizations that would love to work with you as well.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
Shawne Merriman, ladies and gentlemen, former NFL superstar, an all-pro player for the Chargers, the Bills, fantastic personality, and looks like he's going to be very popular in the MMA world for many, many years to come. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking to Colorado Rockies relief pitcher Lucas Gilbreath here on the Sports Loudmouth.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Uh-huh, okay.
Well, we were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Hey, guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Little Rock. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks. My co-host, the Speedster, Speedy Petey. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including The Loudmouth, which airs every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. live. You can call this show. You can interact. Great guests, great content, crazy callers, as we always say. No Jeff for the last couple of weeks. Very surprisingly, we don't have his crazy calls. But all you have to do to check out our show is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Thank you to ex-Chargers and Bills All-Pro linebacker and founder of Lights Out Xtreme Fighting, Shawne Merriman, for joining us. And now our second guest of the night, first time on the show. He is a rookie on this show, so this will be interesting. We are now talking to Colorado Rockies relief pitcher Lucas Gilbreath. Lucas, what's up, bud?
Fellas, how's it going? I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely, man. And I've seen your post on Instagram that you are the Colorado Rockies bench warmer. Why would you be a bench warmer? I love it, by the way. Great personality.
Yeah, so this year, obviously I had surgery in mid-March, so I didn't get to pitch this year, and I got to do a lot of watching baseball. So I kind of fully embraced the role and decided I was going to be a bench warmer, and maybe even more of a cheerleader than a bench warmer. So it was a fun little play at a not so fun situation. I just try and laugh about it.
You know, it's so funny because I wouldn't mind being a bench warmer in the MLB either, and traveling with my team and for like 5-star hotels and hanging out with my boys. Who's crying about that and making money? I mean, I'm sitting on the bench. Yeah, I'm healing. I want to be out there. I want to be out there trying to help my team win. But hey, it doesn't hurt for me sitting on a bench and enjoying myself with all my buddies. So I can't cry about that. And I know you're not crying about that.
No, absolutely not, man. There's a lot worse things that can happen to you in life than hanging out, watching baseball, and getting paid to do so. So can't complain.
Absolutely.
Now, the real question, as you being the bench warmer of the team, have you ever impersonated the bench warmers meme, I am 12?
No. That's one I didn't think of. I went through a lot of crazy things and ideas throughout the course of the year and pranks and whatever, but I hadn't done that one.
As everybody knows, we are talking to Colorado Rockies relief pitcher Lucas Gilbreath. Lucas, obviously in the National League, everybody knows what the Dodgers did in the offseason. I mean, I don't even want to go through the deferred money that they've been throwing away and saying, hey, you know what? 20 years from now, we're going to pay these guys back. But I think that what the Dodgers is trying to do is trying to win multiple championships and really bring the stars and the lights flashing right on them. What were your thoughts when they added Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto? What was your thoughts to that move?
Yeah, I mean, that was already a very, very tough lineup with Mookie and Freddie and Gavin Lux will be back, and obviously Muncy and a lot of really good players. And I had a feeling that's where Ohtani was going to end up, and I can't say I'm super excited about that, but it is crazy what they've done. I mean, they pretty much set out to pick up whichever free agent they wanted to this offseason, and they did it, and they didn't seem to have any problems doing so.
So you played against, obviously not this year because you were hurt, but the young Arizona Diamondbacks team that just went to a World Series. What was it like? Obviously, you didn't face the rookies this year, but what was it like facing some of those young hitters, that young team?
Oh man, they're a scrappy bunch. I gotta say that's a lineup that it's not necessarily like the shock factor or wow factor of the Dodgers in a sense, but they are all good hitters that put together really good at bats and grind out at bats. They'll waste pitches, they'll fight off. They'll put the ball in play. It's not a fun team, but I mean, it's a testament to what they're able to do. They battle, they steal bases, they make good plays. That's just their brand and how they win ball games. But it was impressive to watch.
You look at your career and you've played in about, it says right here, you're 5-2 in your career, have a 3.78 ERA, which is a good ERA in the MLB. Your whip's pretty good. What is it like playing in the minor leagues and then being called up to the major leagues and playing against some of the greatest players in the world?
Yeah, I mean, the minor leagues is obviously the minor leagues. I could talk about that for hours and hours. I think it's getting better slowly, which is great. But yeah, I mean, you're grinding, you're on buses for 14, 15 hours, eating crappy food and just trying to kind of stay alive, we always joked. And then the big leagues, you get to the 5-star hotels and the fancy food and travel. But the caveat there is now you got to face guys like Mookie Betts and Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis and Ohtani and all that. So that's kind of the big step. And so early on, I did let it affect me probably more than I should have, probably as anybody would. You get excited. I mean, I remember throwing to Pujols for the first time being like, oh my gosh, I grew up watching Pujols play. It's one of those things. It's almost surreal, but you kind of get used to, okay, my job is now to get these guys out, especially me as a left-handed pitcher. I was learning like, okay, my job is to get Juan Soto, Freddie Freeman, Ohtani. That my job is to get those guys out, especially in late innings. So you kind of have to almost put it aside and say, how am I going to do that? You know, they're very, very talented hitters, and there's a reason they're as good as they are. So it's definitely a game of cat and mouse, and you got to be sharp at all moments with that.
So one of the things we've seen since the Rockies have really been around is the saying is, oh, it's very hard to pitch at Coors Field. So you being as a pitcher at Coors Field, like Errol was saying, a 3.78 ERA for that park would be probably a high 3.1 or something in another park potentially. Is it as hard as people say it is?
I mean, there's definitely challenges. You kind of don't want to talk about it, right? But it's the elephant in the room. It's something that we have to deal with, and I know opposing teams absolutely hate it, but you learn to get used to it. It's just different. I'm not going to say it's better or worse necessarily, but your pitches don't move as much and the ball flies more, which adds inherent challenges, obviously, as a pitcher. So trying to figure out how to pitch there, what's effective, what's not, there's definitely a learning curve. I've learned a lot even in the time I've been there of, okay, I can't do this, I have to do that. I tell people a lot of times it goes back to a lot of like old school kind of pitching mindsets in a sense of you got to locate, you got to change sides in and out, and you have to just really execute pitches.
As everybody knows, we are talking to Colorado Rockies relief pitcher Lucas Gilbreath. You know, Lucas, the Colorado Rockies are going to have a Hall of Famer head to the Hall of Fame, and Todd Helton. And there's a lot of questions because Todd Helton he was practically his whole career a Colorado Rocky. And my question to you is, being that he played his whole career in Colorado, do you believe he did enough playing in Colorado to be a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be upfront with you. I'm biased because he was always my favorite player growing up, and I love Todd. But, I mean, in all reality, what people don't talk about is how hard it is to go from Coors to hit on the road as well. Mm-hmm. I don't think that gets discussed enough because you get accustomed to the ball not moving and the ball doing certain things. And I mean, as you see with a lot of our hitters, the splits that they have, it's a huge, huge, huge difference because you roll into San Diego and the ball moves an extra 6 inches and now you're swinging and missing. And that's one of the things, like Todd's numbers are obviously outrageous and his road numbers are actually still very good. I think he hit almost 290 on the road as well. Yep. But I think to me, without giving him credit for, going from home to away and switching through that, I think his numbers, some of the things he did both offensively and not a lot of people talk about the defensive side. I do think he was very deserving, just as he was as dominant as he was for that stretch.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So one of the rule changes that have been big in the last 3 years has been the 3-batter minimum. You as a relief pitcher, especially as a lefty relief pitcher, a lot of the targets for why Rob Manfred decided to change it. Like, is that something that you had to adjust to, being maybe a specialist in the past or other lefties being a specialist in the past? And what is your thought on the rule?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it used to kind of be you could specialize how your attack plan, how you pitch, because I would go into the game knowing I'm going to face 1 or 2, maybe 3 left-handed hitters, and then I'm going to get yanked. And now it's definitely changed a little bit about the way I pitch, a little bit about my arsenal. And I definitely have to be more conscious of how I throw to righties. And in turn, I think I've actually gotten better against righties than I am lefties now. But to me, I think the change is good. I understand why the change was made. I think the pace of play thing is always going to be a discussion in the game of baseball, but I can look back to some of those playoff games when they were rolling through different pitchers, every single batter. And I can say that's not what baseball's about. And I do think that's better for fan experience, but it is a bit of a challenge. I think a lot of times it changes how much guys have to rest, when they can throw, when they cannot throw. It was different when it was, hey, you may throw 4 days in a row, but 2 of those might just be to get 1 batter. Now it's changed the game a little bit in that sense.
Now, Lucas, I look at their roster. I look at your roster right now. There's quite a few good young players. Is there a player that really stands out from all the rest and somebody for all the fans to look at and watch for the next couple of years?
I mean, if I was going to pick two, Nolan Jones and Ezekiel Tovar. I mean, Tovar kind of went quietly unnoticed just because Nolan Jones played so well, and deservingly so. But Tovar's very quiet. He doesn't say much. He quietly just hit pretty well at the big league level and fielded well above average as a 21-year-old, which is crazy to think about. I think, I mean, myself personally, knowing Tovey coming up to the minor leagues, I was a little worried about his bat, especially with his young age and his lack of experience. And he squashed that real quick because he's already showing power. He's showing discipline. He started battling in counts. I think a lot of times in the big leagues, what will happen is somebody will figure you out, and then every team from then on out figures out what your holes are and what your tendencies are. And he did a good job combating that. But on top of that, Nolan's an easy one. I mean, just from a physical standpoint, he's a freak. He's a huge dude. He's fast. He's athletic. He does everything. And then you put him in the box, and I don't even think he knows how good he is sometimes, because he did things that, as a left-handed hitter against some of the most elite left-handed pitchers in baseball, he took him deep or took him backside for a double. It was incredible to watch him kind of develop throughout the year. And I can honestly confidently say I don't really know what his weakness is. If I had to throw to him right now in spring training, I don't know how I would attack him.
Wow. Interesting. So somebody made some interesting comments this week, and Anthony Rendon saying that the MLB should shorten their season. He wants around 100-game season. And Jonathan Papelbon, his former teammate, did not like that. Says he has no work ethic for baseball. What are your
told
thoughts?
him to shut up. That's what he told
Pretty much. So what are your thoughts on those comments?
I mean, I see both sides. I think 100's a little bit of a crazy idea, but when they kind of toyed around with 144 or 142 or whatever it was, I could see it. I think with the expanded playoff, maybe it makes sense. But at the end of the day, I think part of baseball is the grind of playing 162 games. I think that's become part of the game. It's ingrained into the game. And at the end of the day, that's what we're there to do in a sense. I kind of try and take pride in, like, I want to be able to throw 60 times or 70 times or as many times as they'll let me, basically, because that's my job.
As everybody knows, we are talking to Colorado Rockies relief pitcher Lucas Gilbreath. It's so funny because we're here in New York. You have the Mets, you have the Yankees. The Yankees added Juan Soto. You mentioned Juan Soto. I know you pitched against Juan Soto. What type of hitter is Juan Soto?
He's not a fun one to throw to. I try not to give hitters too much credit sometimes because it's a mind game in a sense, but I'm happy to see him leave the NL West. I'll just say that. I can think of an at-bat in San Diego where I swear I gave him my best bullets, and I think he still hit a double. I went like 97 miles an hour, right on the corner away. He swung and missed. I tried to go a ball further out. He took it immediately for ball one. I threw another like 97-mile-an-hour fastball up and away that he fouled off, and then I tried to get him with the slider because he was on time for upper 90s, and he ripped a double. I'm just like, all right.
I guess I can't get you out.
Yeah. So I'm happy to see him. I'm happy to see him out of the NL West. That's for sure.
So one of the controversies this year in baseball was the sticky substances. The two New York teams definitely were affected by it for sure.
So, or were they ever?
What are your thoughts on that whole controversy? And you as a pitcher, what are some of the methods that you use to get a better grip on the baseball with different pitches?
Yeah, I think early on, I mean, it's been going on for baseball forever. I think early on there was a lot of like sweat and rosin, sunscreen and rosin. I think a lot of those things, even bubble gum and rosin, little stuff like that, has been in the game forever. I do think it got out of hand when guys went to the spider tack and whatnot. I could never figure out the spider tack. It's amazing to me that guys can do it because it was so sticky. I don't even know how guys throw a baseball with it. But I'm more of a sweat and rosin guy. I think Colorado's a weird one because when you go to Colorado, it's so dry and so high in altitude. Nothing is sticky. So you're really fighting to get sweat and you're fighting to get whatever you can to get the baseball. So then when we go on the road to sea level, everything feels amazing. I mean, on the road, it's just like, it's like I have sticky stuff all the time. We always joke. So, but yeah, to me, I think the sunscreen and rosin and the sweat and rosin are the two because to me, that's been part of the game forever. I like just the sweat because, I mean, in reality, there's YouTube videos out there, but like Trevor Bauer messed with it. If you can get sweat and rosin and you can work it, it gets to a good tackiness because I'm a person that likes tacky, not necessarily sticky.
You just mentioned Trevor Bowers, and you took another name right out of my book because I think he should have a job. I think he should have a job. He was never accused. He was accused of something and never. He was never, it never went through the court system. He got out of it and all that other stuff. But this is a guy that's been very successful in the major leagues. He's won a Cy Young. This guy is as talented of a pitcher we've seen over the last 10 years, and he still doesn't have a job in baseball. Is there a reason why MLB teams are still throwing him to the wolves when he deserves a second chance?
Yeah, I mean, I know Trevor. I worked out at his facility quite a bit in 2021 during the lockout. So I was fortunate enough to get to know him pretty well. He's one of the sharpest baseball minds I've ever been around. I mean, the guy has such a high-level understanding of the game, of the intricacies of the technology even. I think, honestly, he was like 5 years ahead of some of the pioneers in baseball technology. He was onto some stuff. But it is a little crazy. I don't know. I mean, baseball has obviously always been kind of a fraternity, and the MLB in general is kind of a fraternity. And it is interesting to see him. Like you said, I thought after the things kind of came out and everything slowed down, we'd start to see some teams biting on him. But I guess I don't even necessarily know what kind of is going on behind the scenes. Maybe he is talking to teams, or if there's more information. But yeah, I agree with you. It's crazy to me.
He should have been signed. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. He was never accused of anything. He went through the court system. There was nothing. There was no proof. As a matter of fact, they proved that two of these girls were lying. Okay. Yep. So, but he still doesn't have a job in the major leagues. He didn't do any of these things that were not asked to. I'm not going to say it, but he didn't. These girls asked him to do that. It's not like, hey, you know what? I just did it and I abused them. There was nothing that was said in any kind of way that he was abusing anybody. But the MLB, for some reason, yeah, he's done some crazy things. He, Terry Francona pulls him out. He throws the ball to the pit, the bullpen. We all know the crazy things that he's done on and off the field. And I know a lot of players don't like him because he's definitely not soft spoken. That's for sure. But the guy goes out there, he gives it his all, and he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. How could you not give this guy another chance? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
I think in reality, too, he needs to go to a big market team. I think at the end of the day, if they're worried about the PR side, a team like the Yankees, a team like the Mets, a team like the Red Sox would be a good place for him because they've got loyal fans that'll die on the hill for him. And I think that's truly what probably needs to happen because I do think a lot of people don't know really the full story. And obviously it was a big story when he got accused, and it wasn't a very big story when all the stuff came out that they were lying. It's funny how that works, but I do think he deserves a chance. And talent-wise, it's a no-brainer that he should be in the MLB.
Baseball wanted to kill Alex Rodriguez for years. Okay, he did some bad things. Okay, there's no question that he did, but he was here in New York, and the Yankees accepted all the craziness and the crazy stuff that he did. And fans didn't like him here, and they threw him under the bus. And then when he wasn't hitting, they booed him. But if he was hitting and he was playing well, they were cheering for him. Trevor Bauer is still a great pitcher. Look what he did in Japan this past year. He's one of the best pitchers in Japan. So how could you not? I don't understand. And the Yankees are not going to do it because with all the different organizations and women rights organizations out here, they would be killed here. But the Mets, I could see the Mets doing it. They're not the Yankees. They're the little brother of the Yankees. So maybe, I could see Cohen taking a chance with him. I would, and even Boston, let's be honest over there. Those fans are crazy. All right. They're crazy, and they say derogatory things and do derogatory things to people. So, and I'm not saying Yankee fans are any better because they're throwing things at people too. So I'm just saying it would be better. You're right. He should go to a bigger marketplace. I stick up for Trevor Bauer because I still think he's a sensational pitcher. He knows the game. He could pitch probably into his 40s because he understands the science to it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, his mind and the way it works, and I mean, even stuff he was able to help me with just in my encounters with him. I've always had good experiences with him. And to your point, I mean, he's an artist in the game of baseball. Yeah, he has the stuff to throw upper 90s and do crazy stuff. But at the same time, to your point, when he's getting into his late 30s, 40s, he's probably going to be a guy that's able to adapt and still be successful. I can definitely see that.
All right, my last question. Toughest hitter that you faced outside of Juan Soto, somebody like maybe an under the radar tough hitter guy to face. And who are some of the pitchers you looked up to when you were growing up playing baseball?
Okay, so the hitter, Josh Rojas, with the Seattle Mariners, formerly with the Diamondbacks.
Yep.
If you look up his stats against me at any point, it's absurd. I want to say he's hit like 750 with like a homer and some doubles, but it's one that doesn't make sense because he's left-handed. Supposedly he struggles with high fastball. Supposedly he struggles with velocity, which should be like a dream matchup for me. And for whatever reason, I just can't get him out. It's a fun one. So I gotta figure it out or put a few tricks up my sleeve or something when I see him again. But that's kind of a random one. I've had success against guys like Machado and Mookie Betts. And for whatever reason with him, I can't seem to figure him out. And then guys I looked up to growing up. Andy Pettitte was a big one for me. I grew up a Yankees and a Rockies fan. Those were the two. Because when my dad was growing up, the Rockies weren't really a team yet. So I got to watch the historic years of the Yankees, and Pettitte being a lefty. He was one of my favorites. And then with the Rockies, it was Todd Helton. As a lefty, I also played first base, and watching him growing up was incredible. I mean, just some of the stuff he was able to do, right? Some of those seasons, if you go back and look through the numbers, it was like, oh, he hit 338 with 40 home runs and like 60 doubles. And you're just like, holy cow, that's insane. But those probably would have been my two.
Well, I will say this. There were many good years for the Yankees, and Andy Pettitte should be a Hall of Famer. The fact that he's not a Hall of Famer is pathetic. I don't want to hear about his HGH. He was trying to stay on the field, and we've had many different ex-professional baseball players that have been on this show many times and said, if baseball players want to do steroids, if they want to do HGH to stay on the field, to play 162 games, they should be allowed to do it. It's ridiculous. If they want to hurt their bodies, that's their decision. They're there to put up numbers. They're there to get the fans in the seats to come and watch the game so they can make money. Why is this such a big deal? That's just my opinion.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, we're entertainers, right? And if you want to put the best product on the field, to me, it's the biggest, strongest, fastest players that can stay healthy. I think I'm with you. I don't ever see it changing, but yeah, I totally agree. I think at the end of the day, the steroid era was probably one of the most entertaining eras of baseball, and it's going to be hard to compete with that.
Oh, 100%. Well, we wish you nothing but the best. We would love to get you on the show before the season. If you have time at spring training, I'm looking forward to seeing you this year with Colorado, and we'll be rooting for you. And then maybe when you come out to New York, maybe we'll get together, we'll get you some drinks or something, show you around Long Island or New York with you and your beautiful wife, girlfriend.
Yep. Wife.
There you go. Look at that. Congratulations. So looking forward to seeing you succeed over there in Colorado when you get healthy, my friend. And we'll be in touch, my friend.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. And we're looking forward to watching you pitch this year and strike out some of those Juan Sotos of the world.
Absolutely.
And all the Phillies.
And all the Phillies.
Yeah, well, listen, you can strike them out in the All-Star game. Just don't strike them out in the regular season because I'm a Yankee fan. I want to see them win.
You're allowed to strike out Juan Soto
Hey,
4 times.
I want
revenge.
Listen, if you're throwing 97 miles per hour, why not be an all-star? I want to see you being an all-star. Okay, so that's just my opinion.
Fair enough.
Anyways, Lucas, good luck, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Thanks, fellas. I appreciate it.
As everybody knows, we were just talking to Colorado Rockies relief pitcher Lucas Gilbreath. Fantastic kid. Fantastic kid, and he's a Yankee fan. That makes me like him even more. He likes the Yankees. And maybe he'll be a future Yankee, ladies and gentlemen, when Colorado decides to part ways with him. And if they do, I'm sure the Yankees would love a Lucas Gilbreath.
So he'll be the pitching version of DJ LeMahieu?
Why not? I mean, we need bullpen help, and we need starting pitching help. He could be our 4th starter. Let's move him to the 3rd starter. Why not? Lucas Gilbreath. fantastic. Great personality too. So I'm very excited. That's his first time on our show. So hopefully he had a good time. We always have good times with our guests. I didn't go crazy or outlandish crazy like I usually do, but as he gets to know us, so he'll know a little bit more about how crazy I could be.
Are you saving that for Wes in about 15 minutes?
Probably. But Lucas Gilbreath, it's great show, great guest. Obviously, Shawne Merriman, ex-NFL All-Pro player, and then obviously Lucas Gilbreath, a pitcher right now. And I think he's going to have a good season as long as he stays healthy this year. That's the name of the game. It's health. And if he stays healthy, I believe there's a good chance that the Colorado Rockies could make a lot of noise. They're in an interesting division, too.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at their division, this is one of the hardest divisions of baseball. You got the Dodgers, you got Arizona, San Diego, who are going to stink this year, by the way. I just want to let everybody know they lost their manager. They lost Juan Soto for nothing, okay? Well, they didn't lose Juan Soto for nothing. They got pitchers, but and I wasn't
Future National League All-Star Michael King.
Which I don't lie. I was not very happy about it. But everything else, I mean, San Diego is going to take a little while to rebuild. They have a lot of good players, but overpriced players. I expect them to move players still because I can't afford the players that they have over there. San Francisco will be better.
Yes.
Colorado is better than 59 wins. Okay. And I watched them. I saw them play the Mets in Citi Field this year. And it was a good
I think they took 4 out of 6 from the Mets this year.
Yeah, I was at the game that they beat the Mets. So I think they have and he was mentioning some good young players. That Nolan Jones is a sensational player.
Brendan Rodgers is another one if he gets healthy too. He had a bad injury, but he was one, I think, top 10 prospect in baseball in 2022.
297, 20 home runs, 62 RBIs, 20 stolen bases. He's 6'4", 20 stolen bases. I mean, Aaron Judge is 6'8", and he hasn't stolen 20 bases in his whole career. So I'm just kidding. He has stolen over 20 stolen bases.
Right.
But I mean, Nolan Jones is a big man. He's a big man. He could be a star in this league. And if Lucas is telling us he's a must-watch player, his numbers will definitely show that he is. He was a second-round draft pick. He was 55th overall by the Cleveland Indians in 2016.
Yeah, and a lot of the fans are mad they traded him. I remember that.
I remember, and he's a special player. So these big, strong guys, and they're only going to get bigger. As you see, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, I mean, everything. I mean, there's so many good young superstar studs they're giants. I mean, if you meet these guys, I mean, Lucas is pretty tall. I mean, he's like 6'2". I mean, that's tall for me. I mean, I'm 5'10". He's 4 inches bigger than I am. So, I mean, these guys, this guy's 6'4" in Nolan Jones. Aaron Judge is 6'8". Carlos Stanton 6'7". These guys are giants. They should be playing basketball. By the way, the Knicks are whipping the Nuggets' ass. They're kicking the you-know-what out of them in Madison Square Garden. This is a statement game because the Nuggets, I believe, are the team to beat right now. And I know it's the season, but the Knicks are playing good basketball. Say whatever you want. They're playing great basketball. All right, who do we have on the phone?
Hello there.
Eric Martini. What is going on, my friends?
I wanted Speedy Petey's advice on this because we're talking about Stephen Curry, the 26 points per game he's continually putting up this year. And I want to know if you have finally moved him to your top 5 of all time.
No.
Well, where do you have him right now? Because he's definitely top 10.
10.
You do have him at 10. Speedy, where do you have him?
Oh, good question. I don't have him. I definitely have him behind Magic Johnson, Jason Kidd. Definitely those two.
How about Isaiah Thomas?
5 in your point guards.
How about Isaiah Thomas? How about John Stockton? I mean,
yeah, Stockton definitely. Isaiah Thomas, and let's see. Do I have an obvious 5th one? That's the question. I don't know.
There are a ton of them.
So I mean, we've all come to the conclusion that he's a top 10 player of all time.
No, I'm talking about point guards. No, all time. No, I definitely not top 10 all time.
Just now.
No, he's
not every other position.
No. I have him top 10 in point guards, not top 10 all time.
I thought you said top 10. Well, how can you have him a top 10 point guards? Okay, if you told me you had him the other day, a couple months back, you had him top 18, 19 of all time total players.
First of all, just so you know, I have Steph Curry right now on my list in the top 25. Okay.
Yes.
He's a top 25. Okay, that's one.
Of all time.
Of all time.
Okay.
Of all time. He's a 10, I would say in point guards all time, he's number 10. I do not, and I would put him probably between 23 and 25 right now, all time in my list.
But Speedy, your list, you told me you have him in your top 5.
I don't know if I definitively said top 5. I don't remember.
Of all
that.
time? No way.
No. I meant point guards.
I mean,
definitely not top 5 all time. I would say top 20 probably.
He's better than Chris Paul. We know that.
I don't know about that. Chris Paul's great years, he was the best point guard by far in the league. It wasn't even close, and there were a lot of good point guards in the league. For 9 years, Chris Paul was the best point guard in all of the NBA. So to say that he's guaranteed to be better than Chris Paul, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, I would say if Steph Curry still has maybe 2 more years like this, then you could say that, because Chris Paul, from a scoring standpoint, is regressing. He regressed last year from a scoring perspective. I think he'll need that because his complete game as a point guard is something that not a lot of guys have, probably besides Jason Kidd and Magic Johnson.
And where do you have Patrick Mahomes as far as quarterbacks?
So one.
Has he?
No, not all time. Not all time.
Of all time, no
top
way.
20 all time, maybe, but it's tough to tell right now.
Top 15. I would say right now Patrick Mahomes is 15th, 16th.
Yeah,
time.
something like that.
Somewhere around
Yeah,
there.
Thomas also wants to talk a little. He wants to shout out. He wants to talk to you guys. He wants to talk about the Yankees real quick.
All right.
Go ahead, Thomas. Say hello.
Hey, what's up, Errol? What's up, Speedy Petey?
What's going on, man?
Yeah, some fight. Uncle Eric's putting up with you guys about Chris Paul and Patrick Mahomes and Stephen Curry.
He knows that Errol doesn't like Steph Curry, so he has to trigger him.
He's lost.
Yeah,
your uncle's lost.
Errol's favorite basketball player of all time is Steph Curry. This is coming from Eric's source.
Well, tell your uncle he's an idiot.
Errol, you love him. You know you love him.
Oh, I can't stand.
Don't worry. He's not the most hated warrior. That belongs to Draymond Green.
Yes.
Errol's favorite move of all time is when Stephen Curry ripped out his mouthpiece and threw it at a referee's face.
He did it more than one time. He's done it like 5 times.
Oh, he did it more than one time.
Yeah, he does it a lot. So let's be honest here about Steph Curry. He's the biggest sore loser in the NBA. So that's just my opinion. Him and LeBron James, these guys should play together. They should be butt buddies because these two guys cry more than any player on the basketball court. But anyways, go ahead, Thomas. What's your question?
So do you think the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl or no?
I don't.
No. I think Baltimore.
Okay, so Baltimore. So what do you guys? So you give us a prediction of point differential.
We were going to do that a little bit later in the show. If you want to listen, I mean, we still only have 30 minutes left, so we will definitely give you our opinion. But Tom, go ahead, Tom. What's your question?
Can you do me a favor? Errol? Can you do me a favor?
Go ahead.
Can you be nice to Speedy Petey?
Oh God.
Can you be nice to that guy? I don't want to hear about him and a horse anymore. This is all that Thomas. This is all that Thomas talks about. Thomas is like, did you hear what he's like? He said something about Speedy about a horse and a sausage. Can you tell me what that means?
No, Speedy.
I wish I didn't know.
And I'm curious to know what he's talking about. And I'm like, Thomas, what are you talking
about?
Well,
Tom has to understand.
Speedy.
So first of all, Speedy likes sausages. He'll tell you.
I do like sausages. I don't mind horses, but they're not mutually exclusive.
Well, we're not.
Did you just say you like horse's sausage?
No. I said they're not mutually exclusive. I think of them as two completely independent thoughts. He thinks of them as something completely related.
First of all, I have never said that. That's one. Number two, we speak about sausages, and I asked you what's your favorite sausage. Do you like them dark? Do you like them spicy? You said I don't like it bland. I like it dark.
I prefer the spicy sausages.
Spicy, and you like it thick.
Horses sausages, right?
And he likes it thick. He likes thick sausages. That's what he said.
So you like spicy thick sausages?
Yes, he does. He likes them very thick. His mother likes the white bland ones, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Errol, can you leave him alone?
No.
Can you leave
His
mother out of this conversation?
I'm just telling you. You asked the question. I gave you an answer.
How come her mother? I feel like she's the mascot of the show. Everyone knows.
All I said, well, first of all I said is what his mom likes. She likes, the white bland sausages. What's wrong with that? Anyways, Thomas, what's your question?
My question is, what's it called? What did you think about Aaron Judge's injury? About him running into the fence,
the wall
against
the Dodgers?
The Dodgers.
I think his foot injury was significant. He had surgery in the offseason. He didn't have surgery in the middle of the season because he wanted to come back. The Yankees obviously were fighting for a playoff spot at one point this year and kind of fell off. Losing Aaron Judge in that middle of that lineup absolutely affects him. That's why they needed to add Juan Soto in the offseason. Verdugo, they needed left-handed power. They did that. And I think the Yankees have a very good, very talented outfield. If they could stay healthy, even with Grissom, which they brought from the Padres, San Diego Padres in that trade, that gives them a little bit more depth in the outfield, especially center field, because Aaron Judge is going to start in the center field position this year because right there in the left field, you're going to have probably Verdugo. In a right field, you're going to have Juan Soto. Right, I think Juan Soto will be playing right field,
or either other way around. Juan Soto can play left field too.
Yes,
and then you got Verdugo. Right. Both of them have played both sides.
Yeah, so they'll flip those guys all year round. I think you're going to see Giancarlo Stanton starting as the DH all season long. Once in a blue moon, you might see him in the outfield because his numbers are better when he plays in the outfield. But I think they're going to try to keep him healthy. So
let me ask you a question. So your number one fan over here, Thomas, wants a tour of the studio. Yes. So I'm going to bring him in. I told him he's one, and the last question he wants to leave you with. Okay. Do you want to say it, Thomas, and then then we're done for the night? Go ahead.
I'm going to leave it to you, Eric.
Okay. He wants to know if Speedy's ever been in a horse's ass.
No, and I wonder that.
Well, his
don't allow Errol to exaggerate
his
anymore.
head's been there. He actually smelt off.
So you see, Thomas, do not let Errol talk about that with Speedy.
Hold on. First of all,
Thomas is going to school, sitting in lunch, and he's telling everyone about a man named Speedy and a horse's ass. And this is what they're talking about in the cafeteria.
First of all, Speedy would tell you he's been to a zoo and he did get close to a horse and his ass was in his face.
No.
And he smelt it. No. And it was a potent smell, right, Speedy?
No.
You didn't say that.
Don't lie to Tommy.
You said that the horse was in your face.
No,
what are you telling? Now you're lying to me? You're telling me stories? You hear this? I have a partner right here now that's been to a bunch of different zoos, and he was
I haven't been to a zoo since I was a kid. So I don't know what he's referring to. I don't know if he's mixing it up with somebody else in his head.
Thomas wants to know, has Speedy ever ridden a horse?
Yes, a while ago when I was a kid.
Okay.
And just so you know, Thomas, a horse has ridden Speedy too. So.
My apologies, betting guys. You have to deal with all this.
All right. All right, that's enough. That's enough fun for the night. I want to hear the NFL predictions. I'm going to hang up, and we're awaiting the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship predictions.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric, my friend Eric, and his nephew Thomas, fan of the show. So Thomas is a big fan of the show. Loves the show. Loves the parlay. And when we come back, I want to give a shout out thank you to Shawne Merriman. Thank you to Lucas Gilbreath for joining our show. And when we come back, we have Worldwide Wes and Derek. Yes, the return of Mr. Mountaineer himself, as he's no longer, well, he is in Boston, but he's no longer traveling out to Philadelphia and Pennsylvania as his family lives there and loves it there. He loves it there. His Philadelphia Eagles are no longer there. Anyway, when we come back, we'll have Let's Parlay here on the Sports Loudmouth.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. As a volunteer, you deliver a hot, nutritious meal and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next-door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
This is the Sports Loudmouth Sports Minute.
Are you ready to get loud?
With Tommy Scoops.
As promised, I am back with another update later in the show here. Tommy Scoops here with the Loudmouth Sports Minute Report. In NFL news, Deebo Samuel has returned to practice, as all the 49ers have actually returned to practice within the NFC Championship game coming up. Deebo Samuel actually hurt his shoulder the last game against the Green Bay Packers in the divisional round. He's expected in practice now, you know. I mean, all these players are back in practice. I mean, it's very, very essential that they have Deebo Samuel back in the lineup for the NFC title game, as the Lions are looking for blood. You know, they're going to be playing their hearts out in the NFC title game. Raheem Morris, I may add, I forgot to add this in earlier today, but Raheem Morris is actually the 5th head coach out of the Shanahan tree, as the boys here, as we all like to mention. The Shanahan tree, which is now 5 head coaches active in the NFL, only leaves Bobby Slowick out of the head coaching tree. But hey, he can even get his chance to later on. He's doing pretty good stuff over there with Houston and CJ Stroud. So we shall see how Raheem Morris turns out. Good for Raheem Morris. And the Browns and Eagles actually requested an interview for Kellen Moore, the current offensive coordinator for the Chargers. Now, I don't really know what they're trying to do here. I mean, the Browns offense looked really good this past season, especially working under 4 quarterbacks. And the Eagles, I don't know if Kellen Moore is their answer, but hey, we shall see what they decide to do. In NBA news, LeBron James with his All-Star pick against the All-Star reserves, he is actually making history with his 20th All-Star pick. He just passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who had currently 19. So LeBron's over here making history with the All-Star games, so good for LeBron. And now for Scoops to Scores, as I'm just completely surprised here with this 1-10 over 77, or now 111 lead against the Nuggets with the Knicks here. You know, as a Knicks fan and the defending champs here, it's just great to look at, you know, I mean, playing great basketball, the Knicks. No complaint from me there. The Boston Celtics are actually up against the Miami Heat. Pretty big, 126-94 heading into the fourth. You also got games like the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Nets going late into the fourth quarter, with the Pacers looking like they're going to get the win over the 76ers. I've actually taken up too much time now. I know that the sports betting junkies are actually waiting to get sent back over for this next segment, which is called Let's Parlay.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
This is an Eminem track. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth, which airs every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in to all the shows and check our local listings is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. It's been a great show, Speedy. We had ex-All-Pro Bills and Chargers linebacker and founder of Lights Out Extreme Fighting, Shawne Merriman, on the show. This is the second time he's been on the show in 2 years. He was fantastic. And Colorado Rockies relief pitcher Lucas Gilbreath, first time he's on a show. He'll be back this year. I can't wait to watch him pitch for the Colorado Rockies, one of the hardest divisions to play in moving forward in the next couple of years, the way the Dodgers are deferring every single player they bring in. But anyways, we call this segment Let's Parlay, and we have 2 greats, as always. I know everybody looks and they look forward to seeing these guys on the show from all the different bettors that we have. We have Derek Mountaineer and Worldwide Wes, as we call this segment Let's Parlay.
It's time for Let's Parlay.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Derek Mountaineer Mountain is back, and Worldwide Wes, as always, doing his thing. He has a new house, by the way. Congratulations to you, Worldwide Wes, for getting.
I wouldn't call it new house. It's quite a disaster.
Well, you know what I mean. You bought a house. They're doing great things right now over there in the Kansas City area. But congratulations to you and your wife doing your thing. And Derek, how are you, my friend?
No complaints. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, it's so funny when I speak to his brother, and Brian's my agent, and I speak to it. It's him and his brother sound identical. It's so funny. They laugh the same, they speak the same. But here's the problem: Brian's like 5'8", and Derek's like 6'4".
Now, Derek, the real question:
Derek's a giant,
on a
and
scale,
his brother's a pincher.
Derek, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you fired away happened that Brian Johnson got fired?
Oh man, it's been quite a 2 weeks for the Eagles. Very happy about the Fangio hire yesterday. That was a good start. I think you hit it, Speedy. They can kind of only go up from the Brian Johnson experience, so we'll see. I mean, actually, I take that back. If they get Cliff Kingsbury on board, which he had an interview this week, I don't know if that's an upgrade at all. But
really,
we'll
you don't
see.
like Cliff
We'll see.
as an offensive coordinator?
They fired Brian Johnson, and they've interviewed a lot of guys. They interviewed Kellen Moore today, so we'll see.
Oh, enjoy that.
I don't like Kellen Moore. I like Cliff Kingsbury. I don't know why you don't like Kingsbury. He's a good offensive coordinator. I don't think he's a good coach, but he works very well with good running quarterbacks. If you look at all the quarterbacks that he has coached over the years, he did coach Patrick Mahomes. He's developed Patrick Mahomes. He understands. Say whatever you want about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's numbers when he did have a full season had a very good seasons under Cliff Kingsbury. The problem is Kyler Murray couldn't stay healthy, and the offensive line absolutely stunk. So that was the problem. I can't blame Cliff Kingsbury for that. The problem with him is he's more of an offensive mind than he is of a head coach. So if Kingsbury's just an offensive coordinator, I think he'll do very, very well for the Eagles. I think he'll help Jalen Hurts 100%. I think if there's anybody that knows running quarterbacks, it's Cliff Kingsbury. So I think he worked very. I don't like Kellen Moore. I don't like.
Yeah, I think the fit makes sense because he's an air raid guy. Lincoln Riley was an air raid guy at Oklahoma. They'll run a ton of RPOs. They're going to be shotgun 95% of the time. They're going to be up tempo. So Hurts is familiar with the system. I just want to see Hurts in more of a pro style Shanahan type offense where he's under center. They take the stress off him a little bit more. They get back to an emphasis in the run game because Cliff does not want to do that. Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, the upper management in Philadelphia, to their core, they don't really want to do that. They want to be a pass-first team. They're very analytically driven, and I think that's been a little bit of the kind of clash that the coaching staff, who, depending on who the coach was, between Lurie and Howie versus whoever. You've seen all the coaches that have come into Philly the last decade, right? So I just would rather them get someone a little bit more multiple, take the stress off Hurts because they just put way too much on Hurts' plate this year. It was not, and I think Johnson had a lot of those principles, but they're in gun all the time, and Hurts' legs weren't really a threat. He was clearly playing hurt. They're dropping back way too much, in my opinion. So I just want them to kind of get away from that style of play. But, the Kingsbury fit on paper makes sense. So we'll see. I'll try to keep an open mind, but I think there are better candidates out there.
I think that if you look at Kellen Moore and Kingsbury, I'm going Kingsbury over Kellen Moore.
I don't like Kellen Moore either. So
I can't stand him. I can't stand him. And look what he did with Herbert this year. Herbert did not look as good as he did the year before. So
sure.
it had a lot to do with Kellen Moore. He didn't look at what Dak Prescott's numbers were this year without him. Okay. His numbers were the best of his career. Why? Because he didn't have Kellen Moore calling the plays. But anyways, let's go into it as you guys know the rules. If nobody knows the rules of this game, as we do, let's parlay. You get 3 picks. Our handicappers, they get 3 picks, and then they have a 4th pick on their parlay. So, you guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So, Derek, you're going to go first. Wes, you're going to go second. All right, Derek, give us your first pick.
All right, I'm going to do 2 picks in each football game. So I will start in the Ravens-Chiefs game. I am going to go Zay Flowers under 4.5 catches. So I got this earlier this week at -140. As we're on the show now, it's at -148 on FanDuel, which I still think that's fine. Obviously, you're not getting a a minus 110 bet here, which I usually like to hand out on the show, or plus money bet, but I still think this is a good number for the matchup ahead for Zay Flowers. Odell Beckham Jr., who a lot projected to be a bigger part of the passing game last week, only saw 29% of snaps, 1 catch the entire game. And it's not even like a positive game script really affected Odell's production. It was tied at halftime, right? Like they were still dropping back a lot. Lamar used his legs to get that victory and put up points in the second half, but the passing attack for the Ravens is going to be centered around Zay. It's going to be centered around Mark Andrews coming back, and then you're going to have some Bateman. You're going to have some Isaiah Likely, but Chiefs wide receivers, Wes can speak to this, they have shut down wide receiver ones. They have been absolutely locked down. L'Jarius Sneed on the outside was a snub, in my opinion, as an all-pro. He's been an absolute stud. Trent McDuffie was a first-team all-pro in the slot, so they're going to move Zay around, but the Chiefs are going to have their focus on him and Mark Andrews. And I think the Ravens know that if their path to victory here is on the ground. Just like it was last week, I think they're going to have to use Lamar's legs, especially to really open up everything in their offense. But 5 catches feels like a lot. They're a 3.5-point favorite. I think they're going to lean on the run and protect a lead and lean on that defense to get by this Chiefs team. Lamar's not going to be dropping back 35, 40 times unless they're trailing this game. They do not want to live in that world against this pass rush and this secondary. So give me Zay Flowers under 4.5 catches.
All right, Wes, give us your first pick.
I have 3 plays that involve the Chiefs Ravens, and then I got one on the Lions Niners game, but I'm going to start with the Chiefs and the Baltimore game. These teams defensively, I mean, they're 1-2 in points allowed. They're 1-2 in sacks. I mean, I think Baltimore's like 60 sacks, and the Chiefs are either 56 or 58 sacks. I mean, both of these teams don't want to get into a game where their quarterbacks are in the line of fire, dropping back. So I think it's going to be an interesting chess match. Both defenses also against the rush can be vulnerable, but I locally, I'm not hearing a real update I can feel good about involving Willie Gay and if he'll be playing. That matters for the Chiefs. I think Nick Bolton is the most important member of the Chiefs defense for sure. Their defense changed when he came back into the lineup. But that being said, I'm looking at team totals. The last 2 weeks of the playoffs, I've hit on Chiefs team totals, and I'm going to go Chiefs game total over 20.5. And I was looking at the best defenses that the Chiefs have played this year. And so you kind of got to take some of what I'm calling best defenses with a grain of salt. But Buffalo, they hung 27 on them. At that point in the season, Buffalo's defense was clicking. New England had a pretty reasonable defense all year. Defense really wasn't their problem. They hung 27 on them. The Jets, early in the season, we could all call that a good defense. Chiefs hung 23. Chicago, towards the end of the season, their defense was their strength and probably why their coach is still employed. They hung 41 on them. And then Philly, they hung 17 in the first half and then just didn't do anything in the second half. That's what the Chiefs have done against good defenses. Now, when I look at Baltimore and I look at the better quarterbacks that they've faced on their schedule, at home specifically, Joe Burrow hung 20 on him. Deshaun hung 33 on him. Stafford hung 31 on him. You can't throw Gardner Minshew into that category, but I had to only because he hung 22. So now when you throw Mahomes into a group with quarterbacks like that, where does he rank? Probably better. So then you look at Baltimore's points allowed at home against the lesser quality quarterbacks. You're looking at CJ Stroud, 9 points, Jared Goff, 6 points, Geno Smith, 3 points, Tua, 19 points. So the better quarterbacks are finding a way to score on that Baltimore defense. So you have to call Mahomes the best out of the group that they faced this year. 9.5 in the first half. The Chiefs haven't not done that against good defenses.
All right, Derek, give us your second pick.
All right, I'm going to go to the NFC game. I'm going to go with Brock Purdy over 272.5 passing yards. This one's pretty straightforward. It ties into my next pick in this game, but I just think this is a colossal mismatch for the Lions defense. I think that Niners offense is just going to have their way on the ground and especially through the air. I mean, look, the Detroit Lions are an unbelievable story. They've nailed 3 drafts in a row. Brad Holmes should be the executive of the year. They are probably a year ahead of their rebuild. It is a really admirable coaching job by Dan Campbell, but I think they are going to be outclassed, especially on this side of the football this game. I mean, they're still rolling out Cam Sutton and Kendall Vindor as their outside corners for this game. CJ Gardner-Johnson's back at safety. Obviously, that helps a lot, but at linebacker, you have Alex Anzalone, you have Malcolm Rodriguez, you have rookie Jack Campbell. I mean, what does Shanahan do better than anyone? He manipulates the middle of the field better than anyone. He's going to have those linebackers spinning. I think it's going to be a huge game through the air for CMC, for Kittle. I think Ayuk will have his way on the outside with those guys. I mean, it's a big number, 272. Don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of the stuff against Purdy going into this week is narrative driven, and it's a lot of recency bias off what we just saw against Green Bay in the rain. His 2 worst games this year have been against Cleveland and Green Bay in the rain. We are looking at clear skies on Sunday at Levi Stadium, right? So I think there's no reason that Purdy can't bounce back, have a huge game in this spot. The Niners have blown teams out and showed them propensity to still throw the ball when they're protecting leads. I don't think we have to worry about them sitting on a lead and Purdy posting a huge number in the first half and he doesn't throw in the second half. That's not really what Shanahan likes to do. I still think they'll be a little bit aggressive. So Purdy over 272.5 passing yards for me this Sunday.
All right, Wes, give us your number 2.
I'm going to stay with the Chiefs-Baltimore game, and I have to give this pick in 2 parts. However, Kelsey this season has only scored 5 touchdowns, and that's wild because that's a good season, just under 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. For most players, that's a career year or, puts you in the Pro Bowl. And for Kelsey, somehow it's not a great season. But what I noticed in a pattern, and I watch every Chiefs game, whether I'm there or not, after a game where Kelsey has scored a touchdown or had a bigger game, somebody odd scores. So we watched the Chiefs game last week, and Mahomes, I don't know what type of bonding experience took place for him to somehow trust MVS. However, he went back to MVS, and that man caught the ball, and they were some good catches at key moments. And so what I'm looking at 2 players as anytime touchdown scores. Kadarius Toney is back in the lineup. He is a Swiss Army knife. He made a huge play, a couple of them in the playoffs last year that probably got the Chiefs 2 and won them the Super Bowl. Kadarius Toney is plus 600 anytime touchdown scorer. I think it could be a run. It could be a pass. He has the speed to break away. He's had some really bad drops that have made him look terrible in a national spotlight. And I think that Mahomes gets him involved early. There's going to be a lot of attention on Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce after last week with what MVS did. It would be very Andy Reid to get somebody like Kadarius Toney involved in the game. And I have to give a second part to it because I really like the value on Noah Gray at plus 800 for an anytime touchdown. I think this is a game where, because of how strong that Baltimore pass rush is and how important it's going to be to keep Lamar off the field and run the ball, I think we're going to see a good amount of 2 tight end packages. The Chiefs bring Bell into the set quite a bit. And Noah Gray, I think, is probably the heir apparent to Kelsey when he decides to walk away from the game. Coming off of a Kelsey touchdown game, somebody odd scores a touchdown. So Noah Gray at plus 800, Kadarius Toney at plus 600. One of them hits, it's going to pay really well, and I like it to happen. They're going to need a play from a not so big, a non-Kelsey, a non-Rashee Rice.
All right, Derek, give us your number 3.
I always like those picks just to piggyback off that because Andy Reid likes to get weird in the red zone. He had the Mecole Hardman play, but that obviously, was almost devastating for Wes, but now we can laugh about it. So I like those picks. I'm going to stay in that game. And speaking of Travis Kelce, I am going to sell high on what I think is a really big number for him to cover this week. I'm going to go under 62.5 receiving yards in this game. So Kelce has cleared this number the last 2 games. He has been money in the playoffs against Miami. He had 75 yards in the cold, even with 2 big drops. And one of them was going to be a touchdown. And then last week, he had the 2 touchdown game, over 70 yards against Buffalo. He has looked really good the last 2 weeks, but I also think these matchups have really pushed this number up. I mean, he went up against a Miami defense that was down 7 starters in that game. They were really, really banged up going into that game. I think they decided in that game, Kansas City, they were going to push the tempo a little bit, and they were going to consolidate their targets to Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, run the football with Pacheco, with him back in the lineup. Now, last week, I think Mahomes was just unbelievable in that game, and everything was centered around Kelce, and I think it was also matchup driven. I mean, they're already down Matt Milano, the Buffalo Bills. They were down Terrell Bernard, who got hurt in the wild card round. Taylor Rapp got hurt in the wild card round. So you're talking about 3 guys in the middle of the defense that would directly impact Kelce were out in that game. They were just peppering Kelce when he was especially directly covered by A.J. Klein, who's really just a special teamer, spot starter for that Buffalo team. He was counted off for big snaps last week and just couldn't do it, right? This week, he plays against the best spine in the NFL in terms of middle of the field defense in that Baltimore defense. You got 2 All-Pros in inside linebacker in Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. You've arguably the best safety in football in Kyle Hamilton, a Swiss Army knife who can play in any position on the field. You also have Geno Stone back there. You have Arthur Millette in the nickel corner. I think Mike McDonald is going to make a concerted effort to make sure Kelce and Rashee Rice do not beat him in the passing game. He's going to let the other guys try to beat him. I think this number feels really high to me just because of his last 2 performances. So I'm willing to sell on that. I still think Kelce's going to make plenty of big plays in this game, but he's clearly taken a step back this year. He's still really impactful for them, but I don't think he was the guy that we saw 2 years ago who had the first touchdown in the Super Bowl, and he was arguably a top 10 player in the league. He was still one of the most dynamic pass catchers. He's not that guy anymore. So I'm going to sell high on Kelce, under 62.5 receiving yards.
All right, Wes, give us your number 3.
So I'm going to go to the Niners in the Detroit game, and I'm just going to make a pick for the game. The line I laid my action at was 7.5. And so, we've said it before that some of these playoff games, if you believe on one side, don't worry about the points because they're going to win it. If they cover that spread, they're going to win the game. I don't believe that in this game. I am looking at Detroit's losses. So they've lost 5 times. Of those losses, there's only 2 of them where more than 7.5 was covered. One of them was Chicago. You got to take that with a grain of salt because division opponents, there's different energy and there's just different things that go on with revenge, and they see each other twice, and there's just different things that go on there. So they lost to Chicago by 15, and they lost to Baltimore by 32. Then you look at the other 3 losses. They lost to Dallas by 1, and they should have won that game. They lost to Dallas by 1 because Dan Campbell roid raged on the sideline and he was so angry about the call that he made a really bad decision for his team. But then the Seattle game, when they lost by 6, and Green Bay, they lost by 7. So 7.5, that half a point feels really good. I'm taking Detroit, and I'm taking plus 7.5. Now, the talking out of the other side of my mouth is most of San Francisco's wins have been by double digits or close to it. So if you believe that Detroit covers this spread, I don't know. It's just hard because there's an argument on both sides. But in a scenario like this, I like taking the points. And then there's that thing where every year we get into the playoffs, and there is just that magical feeling team that seems to catch the breaks or make the catch or get the call. Or go ahead, say what you want about the Chiefs getting the call, crying, Errol. But like those things happen, and it's a part of the championship run. And if there's people out there that believe the league is scripted, Detroit is a way better story. It makes way better sense to pin Detroit up against whoever, having never gotten to this point before. But, my play is taking 7.5 points. I don't see either one of these matchups as a 7.5 point margin. I just think that Detroit is way too good offensively. Jared Goff is very responsible with the ball these last few games. I really like Detroit in this spot. They got a shot at winning it. That's not my call. My call is 7.5 points.
Wes, you could just do what you texted us over the weekend, the Music Bowl versus Taylor Swift.
Well, I'm seeing the memes all over the place now. Taylor Swift against Eminem, and she's got a mean look on her face in that meme. And I mean that is a good story, isn't it?
Boy, is it ever.
The team.
I do not want to see. I don't want to see Taylor Swift and Eminem going head over head over each other. I don't want to see that. I really don't care. Honestly, I just want to see a good football game, both good football games, and I want to see a good Super Bowl. I don't care who it is. It could be the Lions in Kansas City. I don't want to see Kansas City there, just so you know. But
there's a disclaimer.
I'll take the Lions or the 49ers out of that game and just Baltimore. All right, Derek, give us your final parlay pick.
I feel like we've never done this before, so the streak, I guess, is broken. But I'm going the other way. I'm going with San Fran -7. I'm seeing -120 in a couple places, so I'm sure. So the 7.5 number makes sense that Wes got. I agree with Wes. I think there's plenty of validity to both sides. I think the Lions under Dan Campbell, they've just been able to cover numbers left and right. He's been unbelievable as a coach in terms of covering numbers, whether they're small or big. I think they've taken on that underdog role probably better than any team. I think the way the Lions offense is clicking is a scary proposition, especially the way the San Fran defense looked in spots against Green Bay last week. So it's a little bit scary that they have to cover such a big number. But like I said when I was talking about Purdy, I just think that San Fran offense against that Detroit defense is just a gigantic mismatch. Especially with the forecast looking like clear skies. The only time we've seen Purdy really struggle this year is in the rain against Cleveland and last week against Green Bay. And even in last week's game, just going back on the box score, because it didn't really feel like it when you're watching the game. It felt like Green Bay really outplayed them for 3.5 quarters. But going back on it, San Fran yards per play was higher. Green Bay outgained them on the ground by 20 yards, but you also have to account Jones got 40% of the rushing yards on his big 55-yard carry in the third quarter. Purdy still threw for 250 in the air. McCaffrey still almost broke 100 in the ground. And that Green Bay defense isn't very good, but he's Detroit. I think you're going to get a Niners team that is really locked in. And it's one of those spots to me where you couldn't slay the dragon last week with everything that kind of went wrong for the Niners. Between the rain, Debo got hurt in the middle of the game, which clearly threw them off. Green Bay was stalling in the red zone between the turnover on downs and the 2 field goals in the first half, the missed field goal at the end of the game. All of those killed them. Of course, San Fran exploits that, takes advantage of it, wins the game in an ugly way, which good teams do. But this just feels like one of those spots where you're not going to catch them with all those bad breaks 2 weeks in a row. So I think they're going to be a lot more locked in. Debo being in the lineup is huge for their offense in terms of their interchangeability and moving everyone around. Debo can play in the backfield. McCaffrey can split out wide. They could switch everybody around. Kittle can play everywhere, right? So there's just that multiplicity of their offense that's so hard to guard. And if Debo's in there, I mean, you have 4 superstars that you have to cover on any given play. So I think the San Fran team total, whatever that is, and you're looking at, and that over is a smart play. But I'm just going to take the spread here. I'm going to take -7, laying a big number here. And I don't always love that, but I just think it's a really, really nice spot for them. So I'm going to take San Fran to win by more than a touchdown on Sunday.
All right. One more for you, Wes. What do you got?
So I'm gonna stay with the game total on the Chiefs in Baltimore, and I don't know if you gentlemen have noticed, I have stayed away from making a pick having to do with point spreads or Chiefs outright winning. I've made a conscious effort not to give those picks just for the sake of credibility and having you gentlemen and the people listening avoid being able to call me a homer. I'm trying to speak with stats and full disclosure, we were 3-1 again last week, and we haven't lost on any pick involving a Chiefs game in these playoffs. But the one I'm looking at, so if you believe that the Chiefs are going to lose this game, well, then you're going under 20.5 because they have not gone over 20 in any of their losses at all this year. And, looking at how Baltimore can get after the quarterback, there's some flashbacks of that Super Bowl where my homeboy was running for his life. But they looked dialed in last week. I mean, they went into Buffalo, and that Buffalo team was hot. The defense did their job. Mahomes looked just as good as ever. They need one more playmaker to show up in order to win this. It's going to be a rainy game. There's rain in the forecast right now. And these two teams match up well against each other. The Chiefs' strength on offense is passing, even though Pacheco is a monster. And the Baltimore strength on defense is getting after the quarterback and against the pass. Baltimore allows a little bit more on yardage wise than what the Chiefs are averaging in total. I think they allow 300 and the Chiefs are averaging like 350 total yards, something like that. But, Mahomes in big moments, only a fool would bet against him. And if you bet against him, you're going to lose more than you don't. And it's Andy Reid. And I said it last week. I was wrong. But I do think that John Harbaugh has shrunk more than he's won in these big moments. Yes, he won a Super Bowl. He does not have Ray Lewis and Ed Reed on this roster. So I'm looking at the Chiefs over 20.5 because I believe that they will win the game. And they won't if they don't go over 20.5. You're talking about 3 touchdowns. I think that they'll probably put between 24 and 28 on the board.
Wow, he's got the Chiefs. I'm not surprised from Worldwide West, but I'll be texting him this weekend.
For many years, you weren't going to make a living, no matter how bad the roster looked, betting against the New England Patriots. And that is what we have happening in front of us. This is just a different version of the Chiefs. And you're just not, you don't bet against Brady. You don't bet against Mahomes. Over 20.5 in a playoff game. His playoff, they were flashing it on the screen during the game. His playoff statistics is somebody's MVP season, and that's what he's done in the postseason. He's 1 playoff win away or 2 playoff wins away from being second all time behind Brady, and he's done it in 6 years. This Baltimore defense is not they're number one in terms of points allowed, but they're not as good as some of these other defenses that are out there, and they don't do well against good quarterbacks. Deshaun hung 33 on them.
All right. Wes, Derek, we'll see you next week. You guys are fantastic. Guys, you should be betting on their picks because these guys are, Wes was 3-1. Last time Derek was on, I think he was 3-1 too. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that you guys come on next week. We have a lot of fans that are big fans of you guys and take your bets and they bet on them and they win some money. So
Wes will be on, especially if the Chiefs win.
That's true.
I'll be on no matter what. I'll take my medicine if they lose. They've had enough success. I can die a happy Chiefs.
Hey, wait a second. You are a Chicago Bears fan. Don't you lie over there.
If the Chiefs and the Bears were playing one another in the Super Bowl, there is no question I'd be wearing my Devin Hester jersey and cheering for the Bears. This regular season game that I was at, Chiefs Bears, I wore a Bacardi t-shirt.
You need that. You need that as a Bears fan.
I watched the game. I tailgated. It was early in the season. I was never a huge Justin Fields fan when he was at Ohio State. I wasn't a big Justin fan when he was coming out in the draft. I wanted Justin to move on to get CJ onto the field. I was one of those guys that stalked CJ when he was a junior in high school. I watched his high school games. And so, the Bears game, I would never cheer against them, but I'm not going to be in Arrowhead and cheer against the Chiefs unless, it is the Bears and it's an important game.
All right. Boys, we'll see you next week. Let's
Okay.
parlay with Worldwide West and Derek Mountaineer Mountain. Fantastic. Let's go through the other specific things we got to get into. We'll finish up at 10:30. The show will be over. The Baseball Hall of Fame inductees are inducted 3 new members this week: Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and Todd Helton. Beltre got 95.7% of the vote, while Helton got 79.7% of the vote, and Mauer got 76.1% of the vote. Billy Wagner was 5 votes short for 73.8%. He'll be in next year. Gary Sheffield, Andrew Jones, Carlos Beltran all got more than half of the vote, but Sheffield is now out of eligibility. Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez both were around just 1/3 of the vote. There have been 3 players or less inducted into the Hall of Fame now in 4 of the last 5 years. First of all, Beltre is definitely a Hall of Famer. The guy has an unbelievable career, one of the best third basemen for many, many years. Power hitter. He had a lot of doubles, a lot of triples. This guy had a tremendous ability of seeing the ball the way he did, and a great defender. Todd Helton played in Colorado. There's a lot of questions with that, but you're right. When we had Lucas on, Lucas was saying that Helton was a career 290 hitter outside of Colorado. That says a lot about his hitting skill and his power and what he did outside of Colorado. And Mauer, for 5-6 years, he was the best catcher in baseball. An MVP, every MVP candidate every year, slugger every single year. The guy won a batting title or 2. I mean, the guy, when he was at the top of his game before injury, he was one of the best, if not the best player in baseball.
Yeah, and you also look at the Baseball Hall of Fame. We talk about the criteria of they like guys that really did well with teammates, did well with the media, guys like that. I think all 3 of these guys really qualify for that too. Adrian Beltre was loved wherever he went. The Dodgers, when he first came up as a young player, but the Dodgers were not exactly a powerhouse back then too, but he was one of those fun players to watch. He was a great defensive third baseman for a very long period of time, and some of the best longevity you'll ever see at the third base position. Todd Helton in Colorado and outside of Colorado still is one of the best pure hitters on the road and at home. Almost 400 career home runs. That usually qualifies you to get into the Hall of Fame unless you're a steroid guy. But Todd Helton was never one of the ones suspected.
Used to be 500.
Yeah, but still, like, that's a very hard feat to do anyway, even getting 300 or 400. And I think even with the Coors Field, because remember, they shut off the humidor after the first couple of years. And Todd Helton, most of his career was like that too. And look at all the Rockies just dysfunction throughout their years too. And he still stayed there the whole time. And then Joe Mauer, somebody that really changed the catcher position too, because you look at back then, they had all these bulky catchers, these big power hitting catchers in the 80s and the 90s. And now today you have a lot more of these leaner catchers. And I think it started with Joe Mauer.
If they moved him to first base and he never was a catcher, is he a Hall of Famer?
That's a good question. It's tough to tell because
no, I don't think he would be.
Again, Mauer was still another one that was a very good pure hitter for a while too. Yeah, power. Yeah, he didn't have he had 250 something home runs. Like he wasn't the power like you see.
So he wouldn't be a Hall of Famer.
No. Probably, yeah, no. Probably if he wasn't a first baseman. Yeah, because the baseball writers are very difficult sitters. Yeah, but I think somebody at the catcher position where you're not going to get as many like 300, 400 home run guys. I think he still is a Hall of Famer.
Gary Sheffield was never getting into the Hall of Fame because of the steroid abuse. Andrew Jones is probably not going to get into the Hall of Fame. Well, he should.
I think so.
But he's not going to because he's been there have been fingers pointed to him with steroids. Carlos Beltran will be in the Hall of Fame. One way or another, Carlos Beltran will be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, they will never get into the Hall of Fame because baseball is blind. These guys were 2 of the best players in the world, and they should be in the Hall of Fame. And it's despicable how baseball just turns their eye from them because they did steroids. As we just spoke to another baseball player, and he's not even an ex-baseball player. He's in the major leagues. He's 27 years old, and Lucas Gilbreath, and he told us that baseball players should be allowed to use steroids. So that's from a baseball player in the game today. So crazy to see, crazy to hear that, but hey, I agree with him. Anthony Rendon said that on the Jack Vita show that MLB should shorten their season, saying there's too many games in 162 games and 185 days. Rendon proposed to shorten it to 100 games with more days off. Former teammate Jonathan Papelbon claimed that Rendon hates baseball. Others, including former Angels broadcaster Victor Rojas and longtime MLB pitcher Rich Hill took shots at Rendon's claim. Several players, including Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant, proposed a 115-game season back in 2018, but it was rejected by the MLB Players Association because of money. Rendon has only played a combined 200 games in 4 seasons since signing with the Angels. First of all, I'm going to say this very nicely and very quickly. Anthony Rendon is an injury-prone player. Anthony Rendon robbed the Angels, absolutely robbed them, because this guy has played no more than 100 games, okay, in the last 2 years. All right, that tells you what he is as a baseball player. When he was on the field for the Nationals, he was a great player.
Which was only really the last 3 years of his career there, too.
I'm just saying, and he won a World Series. He was a big part of that World Series. But Anthony Rendon is an injury-prone player. I don't even think if he was healthy, it would matter if he played 162 games or 144 games. The problem here is baseball is trying to figure out how to keep these guys on the field. Hence the steroids and the HGH. If they allow players to use these things, they can stay on the field. They'll be able to play on the field multiple days. I just think right now, when you get to that 30 age, when you're 29, 30, your body starts to break down. When you're playing 162 games in a season, or you're a pitcher and you're throwing, 7 innings every 5th day, I mean, your arm's going to start to go. But if you're taking stuff for your muscles, your ligaments and stuff like that, it'll keep you on the field. This is a game when it comes to money. You want to make money. Baseball's trying to find ways to make money. You want to make more money, you keep your best players on the field. How do you keep your best players on the field? Steroids. I've been saying that forever. If players could be allowed to use steroids, it's cheating. It's cheating. Baseball for years has had ways of cheating. Amphetamines have been around for years. You're talking about 70, 80 years amphetamines have been around. I mean, players in the 60s have been said to use them. And that's cheating because you can see the ball better, because you have more concentration. So to me, I think it's ridiculous. Steroids doesn't make you see the ball better. It just gives you a little bit more power. Mm-hmm. If Alex Rodriguez never did steroids, is he a Hall of Famer? Absolutely. If Manny Ramirez never did steroids, is he a Hall of Famer? Absolutely. It's ridiculous. Barry Bonds ever do steroids and never did steroids. Would he be a Hall of Famer? He was already a Hall of Famer without steroids. He should be in the Hall of Fame. It's despicable. Roger Clemens should be in the Hall of Fame. It's despicable. So I just think it's ridiculous. As far as Rendon is concerned, I agree with Jonathan Papelbon. I do. For the first time, I actually agree with Jonathan Papelbon. Now, I think Rendon doesn't hate baseball. I think he's just trying to help players stay on the field. And he doesn't believe in steroids like Mike Trout doesn't believe in steroids. So he's trying to find ways where he could be healthy enough that he could play in a 115-game season instead of 162. So I think that Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant, they had legitimate arguments over in the past. It doesn't matter. Okay. Baseball is not cutting it down more than 144, 145 games. There's too much money involved with it. You're talking about billions of dollars they would be losing if they drop it to 115 games. And Rendon wouldn't be making the money he's making right now if there wasn't 162 games in a season.
Right. I think Lucas nailed it perfectly. I think 130, 140, something like that in that range is probably the lowest you could probably cut it to if you're going to do that. 100 is way too small when you're looking at over the course of a full season, a game that's so reliant on data too. You have to look at these samples, and it's a hypocritical thing for Major League Baseball, what they're trying to accomplish too. If you're trying to deal with the pace of play, a shorter season might, in terms of like not having as much pitching change and micromanagement, actually help, but at the same time, you're not going to get as much revenue. So like it doesn't really help for them either. Now, as far as the actual claims, Anthony Rendon, it's not the ideal one to be talking because he's always been injury prone. And Jonathan Papelbon is not the one to be talking either because he's a relief pitcher. No offense to Lucas or any other relief pitchers, but you're not playing every day. You don't know what the grind is like.
Jonathan Papelbon always has a mouth, and he's not even in the game anymore, and he's still opening his mouth. So, and Rendon, he shouldn't be complaining because he's making a lot of money he's not even playing. So what is he complaining about? Him trying to fix baseball and change baseball. It's not helping. As we all know what Rob Manfred is trying to do. Ruin the game of baseball. Baseball should not be changed. Baseball has been successful all these years for over hundreds and hundreds of years. Well, it's 100 years, but it's been over 100 years. So baseball's been successful for 120 years. They shouldn't be changing the rules. They shouldn't be changing any of it. This game, I mean, as far as the shifting is concerned, I think they needed to add something like that to baseball, but the other things like the bases and all that other stuff and the pitch clock, it's stupid. It's dumb. It doesn't help the game. I don't care what anybody says. Slowing, fasting. The whole point of going to a baseball game is enjoying the sun, enjoying the weather in the summertime, enjoying all the fans, the screaming. Even if it's 4 hours or 2 hours, it doesn't matter. The fact is you're hanging out at the ballpark, and why is anybody complaining? Because if there's more innings and longer time, there's more money to be made.
Right.
So why is baseball and why are players complaining when they're getting money and putting money more into their pockets?
Right, and the work ethic too. Like, that's a stupid comment to make on Papelbon's part. Rendon has been trying to get out the field for a while. It just has one of those bodies that are very hard to build. And again, him being a relief pitcher, I'm not discrediting that kind of thing. They work hard too. Lucas, who we just had on the show, I think appeared in 80 games last year. Like, there's a lot of relief pitchers that do appear in a lot of those games too. But again, I think it's still a different process in terms of an everyday player, and it's harder to do. Carlos says keeping him on the field could mean shorten the regular season and enjoy the sun. Why are there night games here?
He's right.
Most of the games are night games, Carl.
Kevin Durant told Arizona Republic in an interview Tuesday that he believes that the NBA's GOAT conversation is not a two-player race. He told reporters, why shouldn't I be in that? And says people have a different perception of him because he went to the Warriors. Draymond Green also commented saying that Durant joining the Warriors when he did should be an argument against him. Oh my God, these guys are friends.
That was funny when I heard that.
Draymond also added that he thinks Durant needs to carry a less established team to a championship to be thought of as one of the greatest ever. Besides his stint with the Warriors, Durant has only made the NBA Finals once in his career in 2012 with the Thunder. KD has less All-Star Games appearances and MVPs and championships than LeBron, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Michael Jordan, the three most common players basketball fans think are the GOAT. So, first of all, I like Kevin Durant. I think he's a sensational player. He really is. He's a great player and arguably one of the best of this era. You can argue it's LeBron and KD. You can argue those are the two best players in the last 10, 12 years. All right. Here's the problem. KD is nowhere close to Michael Jordan. KD is nowhere close to LeBron James at the top of his game. And for damn well sure of any argument, he's nowhere close to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So for him to think he's a top three, he's one of the GOATs, it's ridiculous. If anything, I would put KD in at probably 11 or 12 on my list. Okay. He's better than Steph. He's better than all those other guys that everybody tries to put in the top 10. They're not anywhere close to the top 10. And Kevin Durant changed the game because he became one of those 6'10", 6'11" shooters that we've never seen in the game. And now you see guys like Kristaps Porzingis and all these other guys that he calls the unicorn. So I think KD changed the game. I think he brought a different aspect of a game and a style of game to the NBA for his size. But to say that he is one of the GOATs of all time is ridiculous. Like I said, I would take 10 to 11 guys over him. I would put him around Kobe Bryant. That's where I would put KD right now. If you want to argue that Kobe Bryant's one of the top 5 players of all time, then you can argue that Kevin Durant is a top 5 player of all time. I don't think Kobe's a top 5 player of all time because Kobe's game kind of mirrored Michael Jordan's. And when I look at top 10 players, I look at guys that changed the game. KD changed the game for a guy of his stature, his size, that could shoot the ball the way he can. The problem with KD is KD's game never changed the teams that he played for, except the teams that he was with. He was matched up with superstar player after superstar player after superstar player. As a matter of fact, when he was in OKC, he played with Russell Westbrook in the prime of his career, and at the youth of his career, he played with James Harden. He played with these guys and talented Adams. He played with a lot of great players. So, and he couldn't take them to the finals. He took them to the finals one time, and that was without Adams. And I remember that. And that after that year, James Harden goes to the Rockets. So, and he was the sixth man on that team. He was sixth man of the year, back-to-back years. So the problem here is KD, and I would agree with Draymond Green. He needs to take a team by himself or with other stars, as he wasn't joining a bunch of superstars. He goes to a team where other superstars join him and wins a championship. I don't know if he could do that anymore. He's right now with Phoenix. He's playing with Devin Booker, and he's playing, with a team that I think has not the depth that they had before they made the trade for KD. They gave up a significant amount of picks for him. So the Nets are going to be loving that in the next couple of years, because as the Phoenix Suns start to break down and the team starts to fall apart, those picks could turn out to be lottery picks. And those, by the way, are not protected picks. So as far as I'm concerned, Kevin Durant is not the GOAT. He's not even going to be considered the GOAT. He's not the best of this time. It would be LeBron James. And even now, on the outskirts of LeBron James not being the best player, I would say Giannis is the best player right now in the league. And he's not even close to Giannis. So honestly, actually not Giannis, but Giannis has been the best player for 5 years. It would be Jokic now for the last 3 years. But Jokic it's now going to Jokic. I to think that even Kevin Durant's anywhere close to the player Jokic is, the answer would be no. Jokic changes the game because he rebounds, he can pass, he's a big man, he doesn't foul out, he doesn't get into foul trouble, he shoots, he plays, he's never injured, very rarely injured, plays in a lot of games. So I would go with Jokic, as you were just saying. So I do not believe Kevin Durant will ever be considered as a GOAT.
And again, this comment he's making, just because I went to the Warriors. Well, you did go to the Warriors. That's
You
your
did.
own fault. That was your own choice. You weren't
decided.
forced by the league to go to the Warriors. You chose to go to the Golden State Warriors.
Because you had Draymond Green kiss your ass.
Right. And you could have stayed in OKC. You could have done it with guys leaving, guys getting traded, stuff like that. I think Serge Ibaka got traded the next year. Adams ended up going somewhere else later on too. Like, they could have done that, and you could have still won a championship there. You almost did. Like, why? That's your own fault that you decided to leave. Yes, you're one of the most well-rounded players we've seen in the NBA. You're second to this generation. Fine. You're still second to LeBron James, and LeBron James is considered in the GOAT conversation. You want to say you're in that 10, 15 realm of whatever.
Yeah, he's right there.
Yeah, fine. But that's still something that's going to hurt your own legacy, not being able to win it without Steph Curry, who people still anoint as being, like we were talking with Eric before, top 10, top 15 player.
First of all, Kevin Durant is a better player than Steph Curry.
I agree.
I think it's ridiculous. First of all, who won those MVPs when Kevin Durant was playing there? It was Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was the best player on those teams. There's no question. There's no argument to that. And anybody that wants to argue that is an idiot. Okay. He was the best player on that team. If you want to compare somebody to KD, I would say Kobe Bryant. That's where I would. Kobe Bryant was, the spinning mirror image of Michael Jordan. And that's why I think he falls out of the top 10. I know everybody thinks I'm crazy, but that's the way I look at it. I would say the same thing as KD. KD changed the game for a guy his size that could shoot and the length of his ability and what he can do on the court. The problem with KD, and I'll say it again, KD, he's a mimic of the big man now. All these big men can shoot. All these big men could do that. He changed the game, and he changed the game for better. But now you have big men doing it better than he can. So, like Jokic, like Giannis. And Giannis is not even a shooter, but you know what I'm saying. These big men that are as athletic as Kevin Durant and are better than Kevin Durant.
And even so, like, what makes Kevin Durant better than somebody like Larry Bird, who basically was the same skill set? Larry Bird did it in a tougher era. So,
if you ask somebody right now, who would you rather on your team, Kevin Durant or Giannis? You're going to take Giannis, mostly. If you're going to ask right now, who would you rather, Jokic or Kevin Durant? Who are you going to take? You're going to take Jokic. Who would you rather, Joel Embiid or Kevin Durant? Who would you take? Joel Embiid. These are facts, okay? And you're going to say, well, KD won a couple of titles. He won titles with great players, a team that was pretty much established that won before that. So the argument is, and Draymond Green's right, you got to go out there and win with another team, and it's your team. You could have stayed in OKC. If you won a championship with OKC, then you can consider yourself as a GOAT, because then you could say, hey, that was my team. It was built around me, and I won that championship. I was a big part of those championships.
Congratulations, Draymond Green. Your therapy was good for something.
Absolutely. Now let's make our picks.
All right, we'll start with the AFC Championship game, the Chiefs and the Ravens, the first game at 3 o'clock. I agree with Wes. I think this is going to be a higher scoring game. I think if the Chiefs are going to have to be very creative against these Ravens, middle of field defense is going to take away Travis Kelce. So I do think the slot concepts will be the key. Yards after the catch. You saw Houston even do that with Devin Singletary to an extent. I think the Chiefs will be able to move the ball. I think they're going to stall a lot in the red zone. I think that'll end up being the problem. The Chiefs are a smaller team with a lot of these wide receivers outside of Rice. So I think that'll make a big difference. And then Ravens, Lamar Jackson against these slot blitzes, I think he'll be able to run. You got almost 100 yards rushing last week. And I think it's a good matchup for him to counter the blitz this week too. I actually like Zay Flowers as a slot maneuver type guy, even though Wes is right. L'Jarius Sneed could follow him around, but I do think he'll still be targeted a lot with Mark Andrews just coming back. But I also like still Isaiah Likely in this game. So I'm going to take the Ravens in this one. I just trust their defense a little more. I'm going to say 31-23.
Ravens, 6 in offense in all of the league, 6 in defense in all of the league, and 1st in rushing in all of the league. What does that spell? Championship or bust. I think in all of the game, and when you look at the playoffs and you look at what it takes to win, it doesn't matter about the quarterback. It matters if you can run the ball and you can play defense and your offensive line can protect your quarterback. All 3 aspects fall on the Ravens side. Right now, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, I question their offense. I don't know how good their offense is, and they haven't played against an elite defense as good as this in the playoffs so far. And they're 19th in rushing in the league to the Ravens 1st. So Pacheco has been very good in the playoffs. He's looked really, really good. I don't know if he's going to be able to run against this run-stopping defense. And also, I don't know if they're going to be able to throw and score as much as they had over the years in the playoffs against better defenses. I think that the Ravens have the advantage. I think Lamar Jackson is going to cause a lot of mismatches for their defense. He's going to use his legs. He's going to throw them off, and they're going to be able to run the ball and control the clock. Give me the Ravens. I'll go on the points. I'll go on the Ravens on the points.
All right, so it's 3.5. They cover that. Yes. All right, and the NFC Championship game, the Lions and the Niners, like Derek and Wes were saying, 7.5 point spread for that. I agree with Derek. I think you look at the point totals in terms of getting a lot of passing yards. I think Brock Purdy definitely could get close to 300 yards, especially if Deebo Samuel does play, which according to Scoops, it seems like he's progressing well nicely. Juwan Jennings also played really well against the Packers too, one of the biggest X factors. And that could be a mismatch if they try to move Deebo around in other places. And the problem is, though, is the 49ers red zone offense still is stalled in certain instances too. And I think that's what will keep this game close. The Niners defense is going to make this very tough on the Lions rushing attack. So I don't know if the Lions offense will be as prolific. So I'm going to take the 49ers in this game. I like it to go under by a little bit. I'm going to say the Niners 26-20.
I'm going to go to the opposite.
Okay.
I think the Lions are going to win this game.
All right.
I know everybody has the 49ers winning, and it's the 49ers versus Baltimore, the 2 best teams in the league. I disagree. I think the Lions, 3rd in offense this year, 19th in defense this year, passing 2nd, 5th in rushing. I think they're going to be able to rush against the 49ers. Hey, did you see what Aaron Jones did against the 49ers defense? The crazy defense in the front 7 that they have. He could run. And I believe missing the first week because they had the bye week affected them going into the playoffs. Nick Bosa did not look like Nick Bosa last week against the Green Bay Packers. I thought the Green Bay Packers should have won that game, and we might be talking about something else. I really like the Lions in this game. I think I like Campbell. I like what Campbell has done this year. I think he looks like he has roid rage. I don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball, but I think St. Brown is going to cause a lot of problems. I think Williams is going to cause a lot of problems. And I don't think they have any answer for Laporta in this game. Give me the Lions on the money line.
All righty. I hope you're right. So that would be a fun story for the Lions.
I have the Lions and the Baltimore Ravens going to the Super Bowl. I think that will be fun. It'll be something to watch. I can't wait to see Campbell's face after he wins he picks up that trophy, and he's heading to his first Super Bowl as a head coach of the Detroit Lions, and the first Super Bowl the Detroit Lions are going to go to. So
I want to shout out our friend Tony Lippett too, who we had on him back in July, who did say Lions Chiefs at that time too. So if that ends up being the Super Bowl, he deserves a lot of credit for that one.
But by the way, I just want to give a shout out to Thomas for joining us. And his sister said Thomas was cracking up. He had a great time with Eric on your show. LOL. Thanks. And I'm going to say absolutely. We love Thomas, and he can call up and come in whenever he wants to check out the studio, and we'll let him come on and speak a little sports with us. We would love it, as always. Thank you, by the way, to obviously former Chargers and Bills All-Pro linebacker and founder of Lights Out Extreme Fighting, Shawne Merriman, for joining us. He's very busy. Check out his fight card. That's going to be out in LA, California. So he's doing big things over there. And thank you to the first time on our show, Colorado Rockies relief pitcher and bench warmer, Lucas Gilbreath, for joining us as always. I say bench warmer because that's what it is on his list, but we love him. We absolutely love him. He's fantastic. And by the way, what is Carl saying right now? We know most games are night games. Errol made the point of enjoying the sun. Thank you, Carl, for throwing me under the bus. Anyways, thank you to all the fans. Keep listening to us. Keep listening to all our shows throughout our network. Game On, The Herd, The Wise Guys, our betting show on Saturdays. And if you want to listen to some craziness, Kenny Rayner, when he shows up on the show, his crazy show. So Kenny's interesting on Sunday to check out. And listen to the Weekend Crunch on 103.9 FM. We will be doing the Islander pregame show this weekend. So if you're an Islander fan, I'm sure you'll like to know our opinions of what's going on with the Islanders. As Patrick Waugh is the new head coach of this. I love that move, by the way. I really do. I think Patrick Waugh could really change this team. I just think they need to bring some younger players to this roster, because I think Patrick Waugh works better with younger players, not older players. So we'll see what happens as the season, the second half, comes to a halt to the All-Star game, and we'll see where the after the All-Star game, where Patrick Waugh could take this team. So we'll get into that. But listen to Weekend Crunch. If you're not here in Long Island, you can't dial down on any FM dial here. You can go to iHeartRadio and look it up. 103.9 LI News Radio at 7 p.m. It's 10:30 p.m. This week after the Islander game. Again, it's been a great week, great guests. Thank you to all the guests. And by the way, again, we have Sean Smith joining our show starting next week, next Wednesday, first show with Sean Smith. It's going to be a great one, guys. Tune in. It is going to be sensational. I'm telling you, we're going to get even better guests with Sean. Sean's got a lot of connections in the NFL world. So, we're going to get some big names on the show, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of content and a lot of craziness. So definitely stay tuned every single week. Until then, this is Errol Marks and Speedy Petey saying we'll talk to you next week. Good night.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities,